in their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going around that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth at this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a $5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the park's hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. And what about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park, narrated by Angela Rayner, says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. And they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed Whack the Rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it a channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine a Scouser say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour Ghost Train.
Yeah.
We're
across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6. The day is upon us, ladies and gentlemen, and the day is Tuesday, the 10th of June. It's going to be lovely, apparently, this week. It's going to be nice today. Going to be up to about 20, 25 degrees down here in the sunny south. Morning Glory, the podcast, of course, out every single weekday right after the show finishes around about 12:15. So if you're going to miss any of it, and if your persons or persons unknown don't want to get up this early in the morning to catch the start of the show, I'm sorry, because you're going to miss one of the best hours of the show, which is between 6 and 7. Today with Chloe Dobbs. Chloe, very good morning to you. Morning. Nice to see you. We're going to be running through the papers this morning, which once again, I'm afraid, are an absolute litany of humiliation for the Prime Minister and his useless Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. It was fuelish, it says on the front page of The Sun, so say sorry. Chancellor Rachel Reeves last night faced calls to apologise for putting 9 million people through winter fuel misery. These are the people, if you might remember, when as soon as they got in last July, said, oh yeah, despite the fact that we had to go at Rishi Sunak for cutting the winter fuel payment to pensioners, we're going to do it anyway, despite the fact that many charities like Help the Aged and Age Concern and various others who appeared on this show said, please reconsider, please don't do it, pensioners will die, people will suffer, people will be in very, very bad shape because the winter will be very, very cold for them and they'll be frightened to put the heating on. That's what happened. They decided that they knew better. They said tough choices have to be made. That was what Rachel Reeves said. Sorry, I'll do it again. Tough choices have to be made was what they said. And of course, they did not give any quarter to those people like me who said you could do this differently. You could start it next year. You could make it more tapered so that fewer people were going to be actually taken out of the fuel payment, and you could have done it in a much more equitable way. Now it looks as though that is what they're going to do. But it's taken them almost a year to realise they made a complete and utter balls up of the whole situation. What is wrong with them? Front page of the Daily Mail. After a huge U-turn, Reeves refuses to apologise, bizarrely claiming she'd been right to cut the handout to pensioners. Starmer is ridiculed for suggesting moves are now possible because Labour has fixed our stricken economy. And their front page headline simply says, deluded, because that's what they are, completely and utterly deluded. Can anybody else think of a worse government than this one has ever existed in this country? To make matters worse, Starmer did a bunch of things yesterday, including putting out a tweet in which he praised Manchester rock bands and Manchester music events, because apparently Manchester is now going to get the Brit Awards to entertain everybody. And it turns out his favourite Mancunian band is, wait for it, Take That. Forget about Oasis. Don't worry about the Stone Roses. He mentions Joy Division and New Order as two other bands that he likes, not realising that they're both the same band, just without Ian Curtis, who hanged himself. You know, I mean, can this guy get anything right? Unbelievable. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk about the latest riots overnight in California. We're going to talk about how British Airways has apparently renamed the Falkland Islands in Argentinian. And also, we're going to be talking about migrants, of course. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. It's hard to believe just how bad Keir Starmer is. Chloe Dobbs, very good morning to you.
Morning.
I mean, we didn't make him Plank of the Week last week. I thought very presciently we managed to make Greta Thunberg Plank of the Week, which indeed it proved to be when she was held hostage yesterday by the Israeli authorities. We'll bring you more on that today as well. But for the previous 2 weeks, Keir Starmer was Plank of the Week, and he may well be for this week as well, because things are just going from bad to worse. We're only into Tuesday, and already they've done this U-turn on pension payments, pension winter fuel allowance, which seems to be so complicated that nobody can understand how they fixed it.
Yeah, I mean, it was very confusing for pensioners to figure out how to get the winter fuel payment when they brought in the new rules last year initially, because apparently they'd have to fill out some questionnaire of hundreds and hundreds of questions.
Yeah, it was like 249 questions.
And now apparently they're saying, well, hey, we've given you your winter fuel payment back, but if you earn over 35 grand, we're going to send you the money, and then you need to send it back to us via PAYE with your tax return. I mean, it's just so complicated. Crazy. And it really is too little, too late from the Labour Party. You've had basically a year in power now of completely messing the whole show up, completely making fools of yourself, getting rid of the winter fuel allowance, which was deeply unpopular, really cost them in those local elections.
Refusing to listen to people who said that it was a really bad idea. Right?
And this wasn't really going to save them that much money. This was going to save them, I think, $1.5 billion maximum. And, you know, to put that into perspective, the cost of the asylum system each year is something like $6 billion.
Yeah, right. Well, so, and also they borrowed $20 billion in April alone, in 1 month.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, was it really worth the huge hit to their popularity just to save this tiny bit of money? Of course not. It was just the most stupid decision. And now they've come back and, well, they're not even apologising. No. They're saying, oh, the reason why we're able to give you back your winter fuel payment is because we've improved the economy so much over the past year that now we've got the coffers.
And
that
isn't it
is
funny
absolute
that
rubbish.
because they can't admit that they got it wrong, because they are clearly so sort of, you know, thin-skinned that they can't take any criticism. I mean, look at Starmer's face. Whenever anybody says anything to him in the House of Commons, which is in any way vaguely critical, he just barks at them and snaps at them and tries to take their head off, you know. Here's Rachel Reeves saying that there won't be an apology for pensioners.
Will you apologise to pensioners on low incomes who went through unnecessary anxiety and hardship this winter because of border social?
Well, the irresponsible thing to have done last year was to allow the public finances to carry on an unsustainable footing. That would have resulted in interest rates going up, costing families and pensioners more in mortgages and rents. I said that I would return stability to the economy. We've done that, which is enabling us this year to lift the level of the means test so that more than 3/4 of pensioners will receive...
No apology for it.
I'm always going to put stability in our economy first. We were also able this year to increase the triple lot and also put record funding into our National Health Service, and we'll continue to do that. But because of the decisions we've made as a government, we are now able to lift that means test level so that this year more than 3 in 4 pensioners will receive the winter fuel payment.
I can't just say sorry. You know, we're really sorry to anybody. We did have to do it. Mike, here's what you should have said. We'd like to say sorry and apologise to any pensioners who suffered unnecessarily, you know, but we did really feel that we had to do it to rescue the economy. Why not just say that? I mean, and it's not true, But I mean, you know, it's no less true than what she just said.
That really was a word salad. That phrase that came about when referring to Kamala Harris. I think we can use it here for Rachel Reeves. I mean, I'm not sure who's more boring to listen to, her or Keir Starmer. Both completely monotone and just.
They had the same voice coach, clearly.
Yeah, clearly they had that same amazing voice coach that was so crucial that she needed to come during lockdown, of course. Yeah, really, really embarrassing for Rachel Reeves to stand there and not be willing to apologise. I mean, we know politicians generally don't like to apologise, and often I understand why they don't, because sometimes the herd comes for you even harder. But in this case, I really do think a little sorry would be, and she's just lying through her teeth saying that she's stabilised the economy. Let's not forget we had that emergency budget, or spring statement as she liked to call it, because she'd completely messed things up with her autumn budget, where she did a 40 billion rise in taxes and then thought it was going to grow the economy, and somehow it didn't. Then we had growth forecasts
They've got everything
downgraded, the markets not being happy with it, meaning that the spending the debt spending cost was going up, and so things have had to change. And now she's pretending that everything's all merry in the economy, and she's able to bring this winter fuel payment back. It's all going so well.
Because some Labour apparatchik sitting in Downing Street, aged about 2.5, has gone, oh, just tell them that you've improved the economy. That's how you can now change your policy. Nobody buys it. Literally nobody buys it. I mean, have a look at, this is one of just many of Keir Starmer's videos that he puts out on a daily basis now. We wait for the first one to come out every day and call it, the Daily Lie, basically. This is him saying he's investing in the future. I don't understand it. See if you can. Corridor in Chequers, right? He then sits down at a table and signs something. I mean, he could be writing anything there. There's a bloke giving him a piece of paper. He's sitting at the end of the table. He's over there. He gets up, and that's it.
I mean, it looks like a TV show. He's clearly been told, oh, if you spend a load of money on a videographer, your approval rating will go up. He's hit a new record low on the YouGov likability ratings, and he's thinking, I better up my social media game. Do well with the young people, and then we get this. I mean, what is it? What's he doing? I mean, he could TV show is
he could be signing anything there. He could be signing his own death warrant.
He keeps on trying to do more and more things to come across more human, and it just ends up and bizarrely making a fool of himself.
And bizarrely, yesterday he was hosting an AI summit. Right, which actually everybody said he looks more like a robot than any of the AI stuff that's coming in. And what about this?
He does sound like ChatGPT.
Yeah, he does. In fact, here he goes, because his teleprompter failed as well, which is part of the course when he's at a tech summit. Have a look at this. This is him trying to fill for literally 1 minute. God
so let me start by thanking you all for being here. We're going to have a really good tech week. We've already kicked off yesterday. We've got some major announcements to make, some real partnership to do together, and I'm just so pleased to have this opportunity, this privilege of opening this morning. A real pleasure for me. And my constituency, the area I represent, is London. I'm a London MP, and that means that I understand firsthand just how important it is for our sector as we go forward. And, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's the spirit in London, as we go forward, this is hugely, hugely important.
So, Chloe, I just want to say a very good morning to you, and I want to tell you that it's hugely important that you're here. I want to tell you that we are in London, so that makes me understand very clearly why it's so important that we are here and we can talk about this, because it's so important to me. It gives me great pleasure. Unfortunately, my teleprompter stopped working, so I've had to just talk and fill with absolute and utter nonsense, trying to put it into some kind of context for you. But I'm just really happy that pretty soon I can stop talking and go back to being the Prime Minister, because I've literally run out of words. That's what he was like.
It's just unbelievable that someone can be considered fit to have the biggest office in the country.
I'm an MP for London.
Yet they are incapable of speaking without a script.
I know.
We're not talking with a script right now. We're doing okay. We don't sound like robots.
What's known as a conversation.
Yeah.
Where you think of ideas, they come out of your mouth. This guy, unless he's got a strictly, prepared means of speaking, he can't talk. I mean, it doesn't make any sense apart from anything else. He's supposed to be a barrister. What on earth was he doing in a courtroom whenever he was in one?
Yeah, and it was the same with Kamala Harris, right? We had clips of her where her teleprompter went down and she did the same, gave another word salad.
At least she kind of was more entertaining because she just madly
started cackling, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then people would just laugh, and then that would take up another 30 seconds.
Starmer doesn't even have an ounce of humour.
He has no humour. He has no humour. And I'm going to have to do this.
I'm genuinely starting to become convinced he's not a human being, and he is. He's just
like a
an
cipher.
AI robot.
He is. I mean, this is his tweet from yesterday about the Brit Awards. Take that, Joy Division, New Order, and now the Brits. Great to see Manchester's music legacy continue as they take centre stage and host the Brit Awards for the very first time. I'm sorry. I mean, Take That, really? The best band in Manchester? Does he know this is their Oasis comeback year? Does he know that there's a band called the Stone Roses, one of the greatest bands of all time, never mind just from Manchester? How has he mentioned New Order and Joy Division in the same sentence?
Look,
you should know they're the same band.
I'm honestly as terrible as he is when it comes to music, but if I were the Prime Minister and I was going to put out a tweet like that, I would ask a colleague who knows a thing or two about music, hey, can you just check over this before I tweet this and look like a plonker?
Yeah, right. Because Joy Division, as many people will know, became New Order after Ian Curtis hanged himself, right? So, I mean, it's not a great couple of mentions to put into a tweet anyway, because, I mean, as much as you might like New Order or you might like Joy Division, you know, if you're thinking about an upbeat kind of Brits, I mean, they would hate the Brits anyway, Joy Division. They wouldn't want to be in it because it's so awful, you know, and they're too cool. But the Take That, I can't get over Take That.
I mean,
Relight My Fire.
He probably thinks that Take That is what young people today listen to because he's just so...
And when in fact the people that go to Take That concerts are more likely to be women in their sort of mid-40s.
It's my dad.
You know,
he loves Take That.
Does he?
Oh my God, I hate Take That because
my whole
childhood he was blaring it on the speakers in the house.
Crikey, that's unusual. That is unusual. I mean, most of Take That's fans.
Michael.
Yeah, well, George Michael's I can understand, but Take That, the original boy band, you know, Jason Orange, Robbie Williams, you know, it's all a bit weird. I just don't get his. I don't know how he manages to get everything wrong. Literally everything. Meanwhile, the other big story we've got this morning is they're going to unveil a £14 billion sort of, you know, packet of money for nuclear power renaissance. Apparently, according to Ed Miliband, we're going to commit £14.2 billion to build 2 giant reactors at Sizewell in Suffolk. They're calling it Sizewell C, capable of providing 6 million homes with electricity regardless of the weather. Well, that's great, but I've seen a flaw in his argument. 6 million homes is not very many homes in Britain. How many homes do you think there are in Britain? There's a lot more than 6 million, aren't there?
Yeah, there are a lot more than 6 million. So the idea that this is going to completely save the nation and give us all the power that we need. Yeah. I mean, he's not very good at maths, clearly.
He's really not.
We know that.
I mean, he's going to be able to provide some electricity for some homes in the southeast of England or something, really.
Yeah,
and
I will give him a little bit of credit
here,
and I will say that actually taking advantage of nuclear, I think the French have done quite well with this, rather than relying on the sun shining and the wind blowing for us to be able to power our homes. It's probably a good idea.
It's probably a good idea. However, I mean, the fact that they're saying that it will be capable of providing 6 million homes with electricity regardless of the weather is slightly worrying. That means presumably that the renewable energy that he's providing for us will not necessarily provide electricity regardless of the weather, because if the weather's not very good, we won't have any electricity.
Yeah, I mean, if 6 million people are able to keep their houses lit up whilst the rest of the country are in blackout, I don't think that's really a win.
No, I don't think it is at all. Chloe Dobbs is here. We've got plenty to do. This from Simon in Durham. Labour will never apologise for the winter fuel decision. They have no humility and are utterly dishonest. The public will not forget. And then he says, enjoy your day. Thank you very much indeed. Stevie says, Mike, in that Keir Starmer video at Chequers, why is he walking funny? He can't even do that right. Should we have another look at it? Let's have another look. Yeah, he is walking a bit weird, isn't he? Let's have a look. Here he goes. Master of all I survey. Yeah, it's a very strange gait he's got. And there he is signing something. Well, he could be signing anything. What's the point of it?
And the thing is,
the point of it?
That shot with that walk, they probably filmed it 20 times.
Yeah.
They probably told him, right, shoulders back, Starmer. Yeah. He probably overthought it and then ended up looking too robotic.
Right. And let's have a look. All right, just before we go to a break, this is what he tweeted about the AI conference yesterday.
We're looking at how can AI speed up discharges from hospitals. Same with the asylum backlog. Or teachers, helping them personalise the lessons for their pupils. In every case, we can show AI innovation making a difference for working people. We should be able to look every parent in the eye in every region in Britain and say, look what technology can deliver for you. We can put money in your pocket. We can create wealth in your community. We can create good jobs, vastly improve our public services, and build a better future for your children. That, to me, is the opportunity we must seize. That's what my plan for change will deliver.
Again,
did he put that creepy music on, or did you?
No, they do.
Oh
they do it. Labour put this weird music on.
He's paying someone.
Yeah, it's a sort of because
to make these cool kid videos, and I'm a young person, and I can say I don't think he's cool after watching that. I just feel it's cringe. It's giving embarrassing dad energy.
Yeah, it's got a kind of Kraftwerk feel to it, which is from the 1970s. It's really not very modern. And also, they do this all the time. They've also got another sort of slightly slower speed music type video that they do, which sounds like soft porn from the 70s. You know, it's just ridiculous. You know, yeah, this is it. This is the soft porn music. They actually did one with this music on it. I kid you not.
Oh, it's so cringe.
It really is awful, isn't it? I mean,
he needs to fire his social
Why doesn't he put some
manager.
Take That music on? At least then we'd know he meant it, you know.
And I keep on also replying to his tweets when he puts out these just sort
everybody
of...
does.
When he puts
Just slags him off.
When he puts out these just sort of monologue videos with the captions on, saying... Get a microphone, for goodness sake. He keeps on putting out these videos. He's clearly paid a social media to do so. And it's all crackly and horrible. And I'm like, it's hurt. My ears are bleeding listening to this.
I know. Well, yesterday we learned that they've put out a contract for a £1.7 billion media and PR company to come in and do even more PR for them.
Wow.
1.7 billion. And we found out yesterday, I think they got 6,500 spin doctors in this Labour government. And none of them are any good, because that's the result, right? Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. Graeme. Andy in Portsmouth. Just listening to Rachel Reeves there. Why can't she just apologise? I know you've just said that, Mike, after the clip, but she'd save face and she wouldn't look so stupid. Like you say, they probably don't mean it, but at the end of the day, if you apologise, at least it shows some sort of willing, in my opinion. So they just never seem to be capable of apologising for anything or answering a question with a yes/no answer. But that's politicians for you, I guess. Anyway, keep up the fab work, Mike.
Andy, thank you. They're just not sorry. That's the part of the problem as well. They're not sorry. They think they're right all the time, and even when they're wrong, they think they're right, and even when they've had to reverse what they did because they were wrong, they still think they were right. I mean, that's how deluded they are, and that's the headline on the front page of the Daily Mail. We've got loads more to talk about. Coming up after this, we'll be telling you about how the Pentagon spread lies about UFOs and aliens in Area 51 to disguise what they were really doing, and Beyonce's giving some tickets away to soup kitchens. Imagine going to a soup kitchen, you're homeless, and you go, can I have a bowl of soup? No, but here's a free Beyonce ticket. Who cares? Why would you give them away? It's mad, it's crazy. This is Talk.
is unacceptable, absolutely right. But you have to remember, hotels are only booked when the government doesn't have adequate accommodation that it's provided for asylum seekers. And let's be clear about it. The law says, the Refugee Convention and our local domestic law puts a legal obligation on the government to provide basic housing, and quite often it's shared. And also, asylum seekers don't get a choice of where they live.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:25. I'm Mike Graham. Morning, Mike. And Chloe, says Tony from near John O'Groats. Manchester bands, he says the greatest ones I know are the Hollies and Herman's Hermits. Gosh, I'm old. Best regards. Yeah. Well, you know, the Smiths you could have had. You could have had the Buzzcocks. You could have had Elbow. You could have had Doves. I mean, there's a whole bunch of really, really famous bands. Even the Bee Gees are from Manchester. You know, everybody's heard of them. He goes with Take That. It tells you everything you need to know about this guy, really, doesn't it? Let's talk, shall we, about all sorts of other things that are going on. Public is sick to death of migrants, is what it says on page 8 of the Daily Mail. We could have told them that about 3 years ago. But this is Robert Jenrick referring to... there was two big stories yesterday. The Sun story about how the cost of the migrant hotels is now 4.7 billion, I think it is, per year. That's without all of the other add-ons, but it's now being paid for as such by, funnily enough, by a whole bunch of taxpayers in Manchester, because all of the tax they collect from all of the people that live in Manchester, about 600,000, now goes just to putting migrants in hotels.
And I think that figure really made it hit home how big this issue is getting, because we are told time and time again, oh, you don't need to worry about the illegal migrant problem. It's such a tiny proportion of total immigration. The cost of it is so tiny compared to the total expenditure this government makes in this country. So stop complaining, shut up, basically.
That which worked until about 2 years ago, but it doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. It did used to be the case that it was
very small
problem and wasn't costing us that much money. But, you know, we've been talking about the winter fuel U-turn this morning and how that was going to save only about $1.5 billion in the coffers, and then you find out, oh, sorry, the pensioners have got a freeze, but we've got 4.7 billion quid and 6 billion in total a year to spend on the asylum system for any Tom, Dick and Harry that can turn up on our shores.
None of whom have to worry about a winter fuel payment or paying a winter fuel price or paying any electricity bill at all, because they get either put up in a house which is got free electricity, or a hotel which is always warm. Yeah,
and also with that story is that there are was last year over 100,000 applications for family members of asylum seekers to come and join them as well. I think it's 50,000. Sorry, not 50, but 50 a day, which ends up being about, you know, a heck of 18,000.
That's a lot of people,
that you end up in family members coming to this country on top of the people that turn up on our shore. So, I mean, this is just getting completely
out of control. And this is the racket which people don't seem to realise is the major problem.
But it's only getting worse because of the weather, Mike.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's just been so sunny.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why they're all coming across in
Yvette
droves.
Cooper.
It's not because the migrants in Calais think, Keir Starmer, he's never going to kick us out. I mean, he scrapped the Rwanda deterrent on day one, and all of his chums were saying that it's a horrible, racist, fascist policy.
Exactly right. The other big story that came out, and that's what Robert Jenrick's talking about this morning in the Mail, is their story yesterday about this free-for-all which is going on, because again, the government sets up these schemes not expecting people to rip them off, but of course they all do. And the Mail had a great story yesterday about sort of fake companies setting themselves up to import people from overseas at this new rate of 36,000 a year, which is the sort of the new skilled job rate. You're not supposed to employ people people who work for less than that. But what they actually do is they bring them into the country, pay them about a third of that money, and then keep the rest of the money for themselves. So the whole thing is collapsing in on itself. And, you know, the Mail probe yesterday, as they say, discovered a range of brazen tricks being used to dupe the Home Office into providing sponsorship licences which enable convenience stores, barbers, warehouses and bars across the country to bring in overseas labour on false pretences.
Oh, and we haven't got enough barber shops. We've clearly got a big skill shortage.
We need more of those,
yeah. We need more of those.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many of these quack solicitors helping people who want to come to this country, or migrants who have arrived and are not sure if they are going to get their asylum claim approved and want some help with the paperwork. And apparently what's also going on is you will have Islamist extremists use this as a way to indoctrinate people, in that they will help asylum seekers who have on board just arrived with their claim, and then they butter them up and then they indoctrinate them to be extremists.
Right, and that is basically the problem. Meanwhile, over in sort of Whitehall, Rachel Reeves and Yvette Cooper are having a bit of a bun fight about money, because apparently there was a lot of rumours last night, I don't know if you heard any of them, that Yvette Cooper was going to walk away from the Home Office job, the Home Secretary's job, because she simply couldn't get her own way with Rachel Reeves, who was refusing to give her money. I suspect, like a lot of these stories, it's all a bit of a sort of a myth. They're all trying to make out that they're all terribly kind of interesting people, and therefore they're having this big row about something, when in fact they're some of the most dull people you've ever met in your life. But a Whitehall source said this to the Times: Rachel imposed a settlement on Yvette. In the end, Yvette pushed very hard, but was told that there simply isn't the money for it. I mean, if you believe that, I've got some swampland in Florida to sell you. You know, basically, the increase that she's been given for the police, apparently, according to Yvette Cooper, is not going to be enough to make the police do their jobs. We know the police don't do their jobs. We know it's not just about money. It's about the fact that they don't want to do their jobs, isn't it?
Well, it's a mix of things. I mean, public services and whatnot have been, I think, the Tories were underfunded for a long time, and so Labour are now...
Yeah, but people say that.
Labour are now in a
people say that. No, people say that all the time. And how if they're so underfunded, how have we spent more money than ever on public services, which we've done for every single year since about 2015?
I think there is a lot of waste, but I think, you know, if you look at, for example, the state of the NHS and whatnot, I mean, the waiting lists go up and up and up, and
it's not underfunded.
It's not just it's a mix of things that need to be done. And I think what I would prefer to see, rather than an increase in spending, is have a Doge-style rethink of the police. How many DEI officers are there? How many pointless admin jobs are there that we can get rid of? I can see why Yvette Cooper is angry, because the party has campaigned on these promises. We're going to halve knife crime, we're going to halve violence against women and girls, and she's thinking, I'm going to need a heck of a lot of cash to be able to do this. But I do think that things like the police not being scared of stop and search because they're concerned that it's racist, if they actually cracked on with that and stopped going after people who have written tweets and whatnot, maybe they could do a little bit better.
Maybe they could.
The same amount of money.
Maybe they could. Let's get a voice note from Andy.
Morning, Mike. It's Andy from Birmingham. Going on about these bands from Manchester. OK, take that. Formed in Manchester, but they're a Manchester band. I mean, Stoke-on-Trent is from one of them, down south the other one. But I think all he wanted to do was, like, sing his song, and he's like, relight the pensioners' fire, 'cause it's my only desire, because I've done a U-turn. What a plank he is. Anyway, have a great show.
He really is. One from Louise in Ipswich. She says, morning, Mike. Do you think Starmer really thinks he's doing a great job? Do you think he wakes up each morning next to Mrs Starmer and says something like, darling, this is a great day. I love being Prime Minister. I love making Britain great again. I don't think he does. I don't get that vibe from him at all. He looks like a bloke who's like a rabbit in the headlights, because everywhere he goes, people call him names, people shout at him, people heckle him. You know, the England football fans the other day were calling him the C word, chanting it in the stadium where England were playing. I mean, the bloke is about as hapless as you can be. He can't be enjoying it, can he?
I don't think he's enjoying it. I think both him and Rachel Reeves look, if you look at them sitting on the front benches, they look pretty tired and pretty worn out and pretty stressed. It is a very stressful job. But I do think that Keir Starmer has the idea in his head that he's doing a good job, and Rachel Reeves as well. That I know you might say it's the spin doctors and whatnot telling them, pretend that this winter fuel U-turn, that you've done nothing wrong. I do kind of get the impression that they genuinely believe they're doing a good job.
That's worrying.
And
isn't
then
it?
it's just...
That is worrying, because that means they are actually deluded.
It's just you know, Nigel Farage stirring up division and telling lies. That's the reason why they're losing voters to reform. That's what they think it is. They don't genuinely think, actually, we may have messed up. We've been here for a year and all we've done is...
No, in their heart of hearts, and this is where we see it every single day, they don't really like British people very much at all. Starmer runs off to Europe at every chance he's got. He likes to embrace Emmanuel Macron and pretend that he's some kind of, you know, continental character. He's off to Canada at the weekend because he likes to embrace the idea that he's an internationalist. He doesn't really like British people. He thinks they're all a bit racist and all a bit vile and all a bit kind of, you know, working class and a bit, you know, down below where he is. You know, he's a sir, you know, he's a knight of the realm. He's a lawyer, he's a barrister, very highly educated. You know, he has no time really for ordinary people at all. This is why he keeps referring to working people, because he doesn't really know how to address them. And he thinks everybody that votes for reform, he thinks everybody that votes for reform is a racist. I've heard his dad was a toolmaker, but
so he must be working class.
But that's another lie. His dad was the...
He brought that up again the other day.
Ran the factory, you know. Speaking of reform, our good friend David Bull, Dr. David Bull, is in the Mail today. A piece by Andrew Pearce. His new chairman, a ghost-busting TV presenter. Rather than just saying he works at talkTV, they've gone back to a show that he did with Yvette Fielding called Most Haunted. Which apparently he did some time ago, and he's a former hospital doctor who moved into broadcasting shortly after he qualified at London's St Mary's Medical Hospital School in 1993. His most prominent presenting role was on paranormal reality TV show Most Haunted Live. I didn't really know much about that,
I didn't know that either.
But congratulations to David Bull.
Yeah, well done to David Bull.
I'm sure we'll be talking to him in due course here at Talk. I don't know whether he's going to be able to carry on doing his job here, but we shall find out, I'm sure, in the fullness of time. 9:36, this one from Andy in Notts. When Rachel gets kicked out, my local branch of Nationwide are advertising a job which she would be well suited for, being experienced in accounts. If you speak to anybody from Labour, could you pass the details on? Yes, no problem at all. Let's not forget, Rachel Reeves lied on her CV. We forget about that, you know, because it was so long ago.
And was investigated for lavish spending in her job at Halifax,
that's right. She was indeed.
Yeah, she's in charge of the nation's finances.
Yeah.
What a clown show, huh?
Pretended, there we go, pretended that she worked at the Bank of England for longer than she actually did. And then sort of explained it away by saying she forgot.
Yeah, and
unbelievable.
And then you've got a business secretary who claims that he was a solicitor when he wasn't. Not just on his CV, but in his
for 10 years
speech
he claimed
in the Commons, on his
He claimed it for 10 years. Well, Luke, what's his face? Luke Johnson, businessman, said at the time when this was all going on that he sat next to Jonathan Reynolds at a dinner party, and Jonathan Reynolds spent the entire night telling him about his work as a solicitor. So he's also clearly deluded. Anyway, at 6:37, Chloe Dobbs is here. Back after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There are great bands coming out, actually. You could have had the Happy Mondays, could have had Simply Red, as I said before. You could have had the Chemical Brothers, you know. I mean, I suppose you didn't want to get that vibe going on, but, I mean, come on, take that. This is his favourite band from Manchester, Keir Starmer. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely mad. Caroline Faraday's here, broadcaster and journalist in Los Angeles. Caroline, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning to you.
Good to see you. We've got some pretty stern and stirring pictures appearing both in still form and in video form from LA from last night. Amazing picture on the front page of The Guardian today of two guys, one stripped to the waist holding a Mexican flag, surrounded by flames and smoke. You can see some of the cars on fire there. The National Guard's in. There's Marines apparently on standby. What was it like overnight? What can you tell us?
Well, it's still, bear in mind, it's 20 to 11, so it's still night time here, and things are sort of winding down towards the end of the day. What they do towards the end of the day, that's when they sort of say, if you're out and about on the streets after this time, we're going to bust you off. So they sort of started to do that with the protesters that were still out. Right. But obviously, you know, these make very dramatic pictures. The thing to remember is these are in very small parts of LA. LA is massive. LA County has 10 million people. And the areas where the immigration raids are happening and therefore these tensions are escalating are very small areas, but very densely populated. Of that, there's about 1 million immigrants in LA County, and they are in these very densely populated areas. So yes, we have now got these kind of all these different politics playing out. We definitely didn't see today the sort of same levels of, I mean, that car there, that's one of those driverless Waymo cars that you can see. They've stopped sending their cars downtown for the time being, because a few of those were set on fire, and it wasn't, you know, a very safe place for their vehicles to be, because obviously quite vulnerable without a driver in them to start with. You know, rocks are being thrown mainly at federal vehicles that were coming in and out, and these tensions kind of being escalated. But yes, National Guard, it all kicking off between Trump and Newsom now, and and it, of course, going into other cities.
Sure. We've got a little clip, actually, of Donald Trump criticising California Governor Gavin Newsom. Have a look.
I like Gavin Newsom. He's a nice guy, but he's grossly incompetent. Everybody knows. All you have to do is look at the little railroad he's building. It's about 100 times over budget. We're putting a flagpole over there. Under budget. I always do under budget.
Yeah, I mean, he talks about his railway all the time.
He doesn't like Newsom. He calls him new scum on Twitter, and the two of them have been kicking off on Twitter with and California now suing Trump because the way that the structure with the National Guard, and I'm sure you've covered this, but the structure with the National Guard is that the governor is supposed to request them, and it's supposed to come from the state, and it hasn't been since the 60s where the White House has kind of sent in the National Guard without a request from the governor. So this is all about, there's kind of other things at play that are all about the you know, who's got the power and kind of testing various powers here, as well as the drama of these protests.
Sure. I mean, I've seen people as well talking in sort of relatively sort of dismissive terms about these protests, saying, you know, we have riots in LA all the time. As you said, it's in a fairly small part of the town. It probably looks a lot worse than it really is if you live there. I've got a son that lives in Long Beach, and I said to him, how are you getting on? He's like, yeah, it's down where I used to work in South Central, but it's not really somewhere that is affecting like the tourism or much else that's of daily business in the city.
Yes, but I'll tell you what it is affecting. It is affecting migrants. So listen, whether you've got sympathy or not for those people, this is the way that they live their lives, and they have done for decades. You know, some of these people will have been brought over when they're babies by their parents. They are educated in this country. They have jobs. They pay taxes. And that is part of the community. So suddenly what's happening is people are seeing their neighbours being taken away by immigration authorities, whereas in the run-up to the election, they were told that Donald Trump's immigration crackdown was going to be on criminal immigrants. you know, it is now becoming a crackdown on people who are here without the right documents. And those things are seen as two very different things, because those people who are undocumented, they work really hard and they pay their taxes and they are thriving parts of the community. As your son will know, if you come out to Los Angeles, you know, in the same way that in the UK that you have an Indian restaurant on every corner, you have a Mexican restaurant on every corner and a taco stand. And it is very much part of the fabric of this city. And this city is reliant on immigrants to work, for it to work. So, you know, those people that you're seeing out protesting, those aren't the people that are being stopped. They are their friends and neighbours saying, we don't want this in our community.
Yeah, and that all sounds very reasonable, and you're right. I mean, I lived in America for 10 years, and the immigration problem in America is nothing like the same as it is in this country, where because of everybody has to work because they don't really have a choice, and so they create, as you say, that community. But nevertheless, it's pretty difficult, I suppose, for anybody in authority to allow that kind of lawlessness to go on unpunished, and now they're just kind of making it worse, really.
Yeah, it's a really difficult situation. I've heard sort of lots of leaders and the local leaders saying, hold on a minute, all we were doing was going to work, and then these vehicles and armed people came into our communities, and that definitely is going to flare up tensions. And that really is where a lot of this is coming from, because now there's this fear that, of course, it is going to escalate and go to other cities. Bear in mind, of course, cities are generally going to be more Democrat, and then rural areas are going to be more Republican. That's how it is. In general, that's a big generalization, but in general, so that you are going to look and see, you know, flare-ups now in cities. You know, you're getting New York now and Dallas now and Austin and these Democrat cities that are perhaps in red states, where there can be could be the same thing now happening, and that's where it could get escalated.
Sure. We'll keep an eye on it. Caroline, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Caroline Faraday, broadcaster and journalist in Los Angeles. She says these things are spreading. But the trouble is, of course, Chloe is here with us now. The problem is as well that, you know, when you start getting people rioting, it's not always the people who are actually right in the middle of it who are rioting. It's the people who like rioting who are rioting. You know, I mean, there might well be lots of immigrant communities who are very unhappy about, members of ICE coming in to deport them. However, they're probably not the ones setting fire to cars. You know, the people setting fire to cars are the same people that set fire to cars during Black Lives Matter and all of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there are some
provocateurs.
young'uns, shall I say, who just like a bit of a muckabout with petrol bombs and whatnot, and kick this all off. And I understand the frustration of people who may have gone out just with a placard to do a peaceful protest, which, you know, they've got freedom of speech, they're in their right to do so, and then they get caught up in all of the rest of this. I do think, though, that Trump was right to send in the National Guard, and I do think Gavin Newsom did need to be showed who is boss, and that law and order is important in the United States. Gavin Newsom said that it was cruel that Donald Trump had 100 and something people arrested, which I don't think is that many by ICE. And he needs to learn. I'm sorry, but you're not the president, Gavin Newsom. Donald Trump, you may be the governor of California, but Donald Trump is in charge of the country, and you cannot allow this lawlessness to go on and to call it cruel when simply the law is being enforced.
Right. And if you've got a load of people who are working in the state and are paying taxes and all of that, but they shouldn't be there because they came illegally, you know, they have to do something about that. You can't just continue to live in a country illegally and continue to pay taxes and continue to work there if you're undocumented, you know, and I think most ordinary people would say the same thing. Let's get a voice note from Jay.
Morning, guys. Fantastic show as always. Jay from Suffolk here. I just want to point out, I've been watching a lot of the footage of what's happening in the States, and I fully support Mr. Trump in what he's doing by coming down hard on this, because you're not really setting a good example of why you should be staying in the country by attacking everything and everyone. Anyway, waving their Mexican flags around when they want to stay in the USA and then burning the American flag, I mean, you're just signing your own flight ticket, aren't you? Surely. Anyway, they're going to round them up. Marines, I've heard, have been called in allegedly now to assist with, I think, 700 US Marines to assist with the National Guard, and that show will be dealt with very quickly once they get in. They don't mess around.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and that's a very good point that Jay makes. If you want to stay in America, what are you doing burning American flags and waving a Mexican one? You want Mexico that much, go back to Mexico. Simple, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're making a great argument.
Whether they've got a nice
deported.
taco van or not, you know, that's not really the point, is it?
It just shows that they don't respect the country.
No, and if you don't respect the country...
If you come to a country, it should be very clear, I am so lucky to be here, I'm so lucky to get to live in this first world country where I can grow up in a safe environment, I can work a job and I can contribute. It shouldn't be, oh, I'm going to burn the flag, I hate this country that's given me a place to live.
No, exactly right. Very well said. This from Matt, who says this, morning, Mike. Matt from the East Midlands, loving the show this morning, full of amazing content already, apart from Starmer's content, which as usual is completely awful. Which publishing company are creating these videos? They haven't got a clue. I totally agree. The music is dreadful. He sounds horrific. He's becoming more of a cyborg every day. Absolutely right. And Mr. Glenn Stewart says Farage wouldn't have been fazed by the lack of a teleprompter. Well, no, because Farage is able to speak in a way which actually sounds, one, human, and two, spontaneous, because he is speaking spontaneously, because he knows how to do it. It's 6:50, back after this.
There he goes, running around Heathrow Airport now. In itself, just ridiculous. He's just standing there. Doesn't quite know what to do. He's being followed by staff. I don't know what kind of staff they are, but put it this way, they're not really up to the task. They're pretty damned unfit. That guy just walking doesn't want to... Now this guy, look at that guy. That guy manages about 4 steps and clearly pulls a hamstring or a muscle.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:53. I'm Mike Graham. Chloe Dobbs is here with us. We're nearly out of the first hour already. Here's one from Jeremy in Berkshire. He says, Mike, just tuned in and thought there was a good new spy thriller coming to Netflix, then realised it was Starmer signing his next letter to gormlessly give to Trump. Yeah, I've got a letter from the king. Yeah, maybe that's what he was signing. Chloe, you wanted to talk about Greta Thunberg. This time yesterday, she'd just been lifted by the Israelis, and she put out a ridiculous video in which she claimed that she'd been taken hostage and kidnapped by the Israeli authorities illegally. We've got a picture, I think, of her being handed a sandwich by an Israeli soldier. She was made to view Hamas atrocity videos, apparently, along with her fledgling friends from the Ship of Shame, the Ship of Fools, I think, as we called it. As I said earlier, we made a Plank of the Week, which is rather prescient, as it turns out she is the Plank of the Week.
Yeah, I mean, this story has just got funnier and funnier over the past week. I mean, when I first saw the video went out saying that she was setting sail, thinking that her and her chums could break the blockade in Gaza, they alone could just turn up on this little boat and bring about world peace. I thought, oh my God, this is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. How
pathetic.
And then we saw the Israelis saying that you better turn around, or we will use any means necessary to stop you from getting to Gaza. And people are thinking, oh my gosh, is Greta Thunberg going to get blown up? What's going to happen? And then, I mean, obviously the Israelis weren't going to do that, because I don't think it would go down well if they were responsible for killing Greta Thunberg. But anyway, they've been pretty nice to them. They've given them all food and taken them somewhere safe. And the Israelis have agreed to take the very tiny amount of aid on their boat and send it through the normal route into Gaza. I'm sure Greta Thunberg doesn't believe that any aid actually goes into Gaza, because she reads all of the lies online. So they've been taken care of pretty nicely. And she's there in her silly little frog hat saying, oh, we've been kidnapped by the Israelis. And you know what everyone on Twitter has done is they've taken a picture of her grinning with her sandwich in her frog hat in her little orange buoyancy aid and put it next to a picture of one of the girls that was actually kidnapped on October 7th, you know, covered in blood, absolutely terrified, and saying, Greta, what planet do you live on? This is not kidnapping.
I think this is could this be her final act of sort of ignominy, and will this humiliate her enough for her to stay away from the public eye for a while? Because the other story that's surrounding this one is the Telegraph from this morning. A man accused of being a Hamas operative based in London is a key figure apparently behind the aid boat, as it was called. It's not really an aid boat, it was called a selfie yacht by the Israelis, because that's kind of what it was. A bloke called Zahir Birawi, who was described in Parliament as a person with links to Hamas, called himself a founding member of the Freedom Flotilla International Coalition, which arranged the voyage. My question would be, if he's a person with links to Hamas, what the hell is he doing in London?
Well, there are lots of them.
Would you mind deporting him, please?
There are lots of them. This country, this country is full.
It's riddled with them. Well, these are the people that go on these marches every weekend. You know, they're not just Palestinian supporters. They're not just people who think that Palestinians have a right to their own land. These are people who actually are literally in support of Hamas.
Yeah, and it's not just people who have proper links to Hamas. You've got plenty of people on the streets of Britain who may not be part of Hamas, but actively support them and will happily call them freedom fighters. You see people going around the streets with these signs that say rape is resistance and whatnot. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's
and there
amazing,
was, I can't remember the guy's name, but there was one of these extremist preachers was due to come to Britain and had booked out a 21-day speaking tour. There were that many people that wanted to listen to him. Finally, after some pressure and everyone saying this guy is crazy, the Home Office have stopped him coming. But the fact that he was able to fill up a 21-day tour goes to show how many people in this country are pandering to extremism.
Very sad indeed. And in fact, I think we remember doing a story last year of a former Hamas commander who now lives in Colindale, which for anybody who doesn't know is in the sort of north end of the Northern Line in North London, in a very nice 3-bedroom house, which I think started off as a council house. It was given by the council. Final story of the day before we disappear off. Beyonce is giving away gig tickets to families using soup kitchens as she struggles to fill seats. Apparently, she's got 6 nights in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and some of the seats haven't been sold. So she's going around giving tickets to, I suppose she thinks is a good thing, to underprivileged people, to homeless people, to people with no money. But if you go to a soup kitchen, you're not really expected to be handed a Beyonce ticket, are you? What are you going to do? How are you going to get there? What are you going to do when you get there? You haven't got any money to spend on the, you know, extremely expensive hot dogs and beer.
Well, she's clearly trying to spin the fact that her concert has been a flop and nobody wants to buy the ticket, or not enough people want to buy the tickets, by turning it into this beautiful, charitable little thing. Maybe she'll be able to get some sort of charitable status and avoid paying tax on the concert tickets as a consequence of handing out a few tickets to concert tickets. Now, you know, we're all for helping people in need, but do they really need a ticket to a Beyonce concert?
It's a strange thing to do, isn't it?
They need food, not a ticket to a Beyonce concert.
If you turn up at a soup kitchen, you know, you're probably at a pretty low ebb in your life. And what you don't need is an invitation to go and watch Beyonce, I would have thought.
I mean, I'm sure some of them will enjoy it and will be happy as Larry, but it just it's a stunt, and I'm sure there'll be some video goes out of the tickets being handed out and the big smiles on their faces saying, look how much of an amazing person Beyonce is. Maybe she can get Keir Starmer's social media team to make a video.
I'm surprised Keir Starmer hasn't got any free tickets, to be honest, and Rachel Reeves. I love a free ticket in Downing Street. That's where she should have given them. They could have just handed them all out. Great to see you, Chloe. Thank you very much indeed. This from D. Morning, Mike. I think behind the scenes at Starmerland, they sit laughing their heads off every day at his lack of knowledge of anything British and let him just post his own stupidity. Also, the signing the whatever it was, he obviously is trying to look like Trump as he sits in the Oval Office and signs the executive orders. He's an absolute embarrassment to us all. Have a great day. Dee, thank you very much indeed. Chloe, good to see you. See you again soon. Chloe Dobbs there, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back after the news with James Hill from The Spectator with more on the useless government and the humiliating way that they're carrying on. We've just been talking in the office here about how many of us have been attacked at some point or other by some form of flying beast or any wildlife. I mean, so we'll take your stories this morning.
Hello, this story is concerning wildlife. It's concerning a rhino.
A rhino?
Right? Yeah,
okay.
rhino. I used to live in Kenya when I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And we were in this wildlife park in a grey Morris Minor. This rhino started chasing us. There's me and my sister in the back seat.
Right.
It was like something out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
We were turning around saying, "Believe it, Dad. Just put your foot down, Dad. We're in a field. Put your foot down." This rhino was chasing us.
One from Mark here in Derby. Went on holiday for our first romantic holiday to Tunisia years ago. Decided to take my girl into a petting zoo. I got a bag of food to feed the animals. A giant goat then went for me, putting its front legs over my shoulders and proceeding to headbutt me over a fence into one of the pens, covering me in the food and making my nose bleed. I got out of the pen, then the goat and all his mates attacked me again, sending me running and screaming like a girl out of the zoo, with my girlfriend rolling with laughter on the floor.
A tarantula climbed up the bottom of the bed on the sheet, and it walked all the way up. It's eyeball to eyeball.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what am I going to do when it climbs over my face? But then a miracle happened. It raised its 2 front legs and waved them around. And then it turned around and walked down the side of the sheet.
Boris Johnson been attacked by an ostrich. The former PM was enjoying a safari trip with his family when the bird leaned into his car and went oi oi and pecked his hand. In footage shared online, he quickly jerked from the ostrich. Don't dirty minds away from the ostrich, and shouted, "Oh, Christ, get hell," before driving off. And so I just set it out there. Have you been attacked by an animal? When I was about 7, says Trevor Jenkins, on holiday in Spain in the 70s, a monkey pulled my long hair. It was long because it was the 70s. I was in floods of tears. And as a family car drove out the car park, an elephant ripped off the car mirror. We got the message. Spanish animals aren't to be trusted. Jeremy, Brittany here from the United States. I was spurred by a rooster in my right foot a few years ago. Spurred? How do you get spurred by a rooster?
One here from Dan in Hampshire. Morning, Mike. Is an Aussie that has been dive bombed by our version of the Magpie, which is much bigger.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 7, and the day is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, the 10th of June. We've moved into double digits already. I mean, you know, nothing stops the absolute cavalcade of madness that is this country right now, run by a complete bunch of deluded lunatics. It was foolish to say to bring in the winter fuel allowance cutback, according to the front page of The Sun. So say sorry. Of course, you heard in the first hour, Rachel Reeves is refusing to apologise to old age pensioners, despite the fact that at the time she took away their winter fuel allowance, despite being warned that if she did that, it might well cause a great deal of alarm, a great deal of worry, and even a great deal of illness and a great deal of pressure on the NHS. An awful lot of people who couldn't afford to heat their homes didn't heat their homes, and who knows what the consequences were. We will probably never know precisely how bad that was. We will probably never know how many people might have lost their lives as a result, and they've now done a complete U-turn. Deluded is the front page headline on the Daily Mail. Winter fuel humiliation. Starmer is ridiculed for suggesting the moves are now possible because Labour's fixed our stricken economy. Well, yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer, our beloved leader, was speaking at an AI conference at a tech summit here in London, but unfortunately the teleprompter failed to work. So have a listen to him riffing it.
So let me start by thanking you all for being here. We're going to have a really good tech week. We've already kicked off yesterday. We've got some major announcements to make, some real partnership to do together, and I'm just so pleased to have this opportunity, this privilege of opening this morning. A real pleasure for me. And my constituency, the area I represent, is London. I'm a London MP, and that means that I understand firsthand just how important it is for our sector as we go forward. And, you know, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's the spirit in London, as we go forward, this is hugely, hugely important.
Whether it's the spirit in London as we go forward, this is hugely, hugely important. I'll just say that again. Whether it's the spirit in London going forward, this is hugely important. What does that even mean? What's he talking about? Absolute and utter balderdash. Front page of the Daily Telegraph, we've got Greta Thunberg's unhappy landing in Israel. Pictures of her not looking terribly happy after being forced to watch footage of Hamas's October the 7th massacre. Probably came as great news to her. Meanwhile, crazy Ed Miliband's out and about this morning. He's going to be announcing a £14 billion boost for nuclear power to keep the lights on. Apparently they're going to be giving that money to Sizewell in Suffolk to do Sizewell C, which will be providing 6 million homes with electricity regardless of the weather. Well, that's all right then. Because, of course, we know the weather is now to blame for the migrants coming over. That's what Yvette Cooper says. Apparently the weather is now to blame for you not getting your electricity when you want it. Also, Ed Miliband, you know, come on the show if you want. So far we haven't booked him. I don't think he's fancying dropping by in this particular part of the world on Talk. UK average regular earnings growth decreased to 5.2% in the 3 months to April. That sounds like another one of those statistics which is just breaking right now. We'll try and get more on it as to what it means, but it probably doesn't mean anything great. They say they've fixed the economy, but obviously they haven't fixed the economy, have they? Because average regular earnings growth has decreased. One of the things they keep saying is that we've increased revenue, we've increased growth, we've increased earnings. People are making more money now. More people, working people, have got more money in their pockets. No, they haven't. Let's talk to James Heal, a very sensible young man from The Spectator, Deputy Police Lieutenant. James, very good morning to you.
Mike.
I'm not sure what this means, UK average regular earnings growth decreased to 5.2%, but it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a part of the ONS data looking at how jobs have gone down as well. So it's another bad set of economic data ahead of the spending review later today.
Yeah. Also, the rate of UK unemployment has increased to 4.6%. So when they say they've fixed the economy, it's quite a hard pill to swallow, that, isn't it? Because they haven't really fixed the economy.
Yeah, I mean, these were the comments that Rachel Reeves made yesterday, in which she talked about the fact that actually we've fixed the economy, therefore we can now afford to restore the winter fuel. And yet, if you talk to economists, all the fiscal indicators are that the UK is in a much worse position than this time last year. That actually, of course, it wasn't economic reality, but rather political expediency that made this calculation. And it's clearly there's a sort of attempt at sort of political gaslighting going on, where it's like, no, we fixed the economy, it's all fine. Actually, of course, we know it's not the case, which is why I've had such a difficult spending review, ahead of tomorrow.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You know, they keep saying these things, and they have been saying them ever since they've been in. But people are just not buying it anymore. You know, every single tweet that Labour puts out, all of the little, niceties, all the little videos where they say, our plan is working, our plan for change, this is what we're doing. None of it is being bought by the general public now. Unemployment is up, earnings are down, growth is down. Everybody can see what's happening out there on the streets. The British economy is in a pretty bad place. And you might blame all manner of things for it, but there's no point in pretending that they fixed it, is there?
Yeah, no, I think that there's far too much kind of short-termism in the government's rhetoric, and that clearly, everyone knows that the economy is going to be a huge job to turn it around. But let's not pretend and infantilise the people we're talking to. Everyone knows the exact reasons why Rachel Reeves did this, and the fact that it was 5 weeks ago after the Runcorn by-election when they got their behind spanked in that election, that therefore that was how they were going to do their U-turn. I think that, overall, it's worth considering there was a great piece by Andrew Neil last month saying that in 55 years of political journalism, he's never seen any sort of deception on the scale of the Keir Starmer's government. Now, I think we're still in the early days, but I do think there's this tendency for this government to go after things which are manifestly not true or plaintively obvious not the case. And I think this example is, again, of how, as a sort of microcosm, how badly they've handled winter fuel. It was a bad policy at the start. It was poorly communicated throughout the whole thing. They should have killed it 5 weeks ago. They've let it hang around, and now, of course, they still can't admit they got it wrong.
No, exactly right. Let's have a look at Rachel Reeves refusing to apologise to pensioners.
Will you apologise to individuals on low incomes who went through unnecessary anxiety and hardship this winter because of border security?
Well, the irresponsible thing to have done last year was to allow the public finances to carry on an unsustainable footing. That would have resulted in interest rates going up, costing families and pensioners more in mortgages and rents. I said that I would return stability to the economy. We've done that, which is enabling us this year to lift the level of the means test so that more than 3/4 of pensioners will receive...
No apology for it.
I'm always going to put stability in our economy first. We were also able this year to increase the triple lot and also put record funding into our National Health Service, and we'll continue to do that. But because of the decisions we've made as a government, we are now able to lift that means test level so that this year more than 3 in 4 pensioners will receive the winter fuel payments.
And at the time, of course, when they were bringing this ridiculous proposal in, people said, just give it another year, wait and see, you don't have to do it this year, temper it slightly, make it affect slightly fewer people, make people who want to still manage to get, fuel allowances, if they have to fill out a form, make the form slightly simpler, don't make it 249 questions. We're going to be speaking to one of the charities coming up. They all said this, you can make it fairer, but they all said, and I've got one here from Elle who said, Lucy Powell, Leader of the House, said if they pay winter fuel allowance, there'll be a run on the pound. That's what they said at the time. You can't forget that. You can't unwrite that from history. They said all that.
Yeah, massively. And there's a couple of things going on here, Mike. One of which is the economic language used to describe these decisions is completely out of kilter. Was there going to be a run on the pound if they hadn't done this? No. Was that a line used as a retrospective justification for something Rachel Reeves wanted to do? Yes, absolutely. The danger, of course, is that when you then U-turn on that policy, you inevitably get the question, hang on a sec, we're in a worse situation than we were this time last year. Are we going to now have a run on the pound? The answer is, of course, we're not. Right. But I think it does stretch credibility when you have people like that, Rachel Reeves, saying we've fixed the foundations. Now, no one privately within the Labour government, even the most optimistic, boosterish, Boris Johnson-esque type character, would think they've fixed the foundations. And actually, for a number of reasons, some of which are outside of her control, such as the tariffs imposed by Donald Trump, is a lot worse. So I think that this kind of rhetoric is going to wear very thin, and you wonder how many more chances Rachel Reeves is going to get as Chancellor.
Well, you do wonder that, because she's not going to make the sums add up this week. I don't see how she can do it. And people are already questioning this £14 billion that they're supposedly unveiling today to put into nuclear power, because a lot of people are saying, well, a lot of this work has already been underway since the Tories were in. But let's just look at what they're actually doing with the winter fuel tax, because basically it's being described now as a widow tax, because they're doing it in a very convoluted and complicated way, it seems. Rather than actually raising the threshold up from 11,500 so that more people can actually qualify to get it, they're basically giving it to everyone and telling people who have got more than 35,000 as an income to give it back. It's a very odd way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, so, 9 million pensioners will get their winter fuel restored as a result of this policy, but 2 million will lose out, and those are the ones who earn more than 35,000 in savings or in earnings of some kind, and that money will be reclawed via PAYE or self-assessment. And as a result of that, of course, there's first of all, a funding shortfall which Treasury have to make up, but second of all, it's going to need to basically saying to 2 million people, disregard this notice that comes through about winter fuel. It's actually the best way to do it for us. And of course, the danger is that not only have they now made less savings, the Treasury, because they've gone from 1.25 billion to about 450 million as a result of this change in policy. Because of now many more pensioners, at the insistence and urging of the government, are now taking pension credit, it means that actually they're going to make only a handful of savings rather than what was projected. So again, another black hole to make up, one purely at the Chancellor's own making.
Yeah, quite. And also, it's now being called the widow tax in the Telegraph, because if you've got, say, two people who live together as pensioners, making, say, 30,000 each in income, they still get it. So they've got 60,000 coming in as a household, but the woman who's living on her own, making 36,000, doesn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just one of the many downsides of this policy, is that who are going to be the winners and losers. And of course, there's questions around the timing of all this stuff. It's expected to be costed in the autumn budget. So the question, of course, then comes, when is that budget going to be? But there will be people inevitably miss out. And, you know, after all the damaging headlines, endless damaging headlines of the past year or so, I think Labour just wants to draw a line under this, end this talk and try and talk about something else. And I think that's what we're going to see tomorrow.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we've got the head of NATO saying you better spend more money on defence or you better start learning Russian. It's a bit of slightly alarmist thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, it's not just us. I mean, given our lack of skill at foreign languages, I mean, you know, I think he's a bit optimistic if we're going to need to start learning Russian. But look, I think this is all coming ahead of the big NATO summit later this month at The Hague. I think that's held in about 2-3 weeks' time. And that is going to see all the insistence on 3.5% GDP spending on defence. Of course, Britain is nowhere near that. We're still arguing around when we reach 3% for the next Parliament. We've had the whole farcical scenes the last week or so with the Defence Secretary saying that, you know, he couldn't commit to when we're reaching 3%. So, again, you know, for all the talk of Labour will want to say the next 24, 48 hours of talking about health spending, etc., Mark Rutte, the former Dutch Prime Minister, now NATO General Secretary, has just sort of given a preview of what we can expect for the rest of the month, which is why are you spending so little on defence? And, you know, we need to get a timeline and a date because, of course, Donald Trump is once again threatening to pull out of NATO.
Right. And what about the Rachel Reeves, Yvette Cooper spat that seems to be going on in the background? Because there was a lot of talk last night. I heard a few rumblings, you may have done as well, that Yvette Cooper was really unhappy and she might actually walk away from the job as Home Secretary because she wasn't getting what she wanted in terms of money. What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, so my understanding is that there was a very sort of difficult set of discussions around the spending review. I don't think that that she really wanted to resign, but obviously there are some who around her in the department who thought that she did. And clearly it's going to be one of the main fault lines over the next year or so, because as someone in the Home Office I spoke to made the point, you know, there are so many pledges that the government made coming into office, you know, halving knife crime, for instance, all of those are now at risk of being undermined by the Treasury's lack of funding. So I think it's going to be one to watch tomorrow. And yeah, the Home Office seems to come off pretty badly from these negotiations. Yeah, absolutely right. Good to speak to you, James Heal. Thank you very much indeed. Deputy Political Editor at The Spectator, of course. The breaking news this morning, UK average regular earnings decreased 5.2% in the 3 months to April, and the rate of UK unemployment has increased, i.e. it's gone up by 4.6 to 4.6%. So there's more people unemployed. Mike in Sussex says, morning, Keir Starmer and Manchester bands, is he down with the kids like Gordon Brown's favourite group, the Arctic Monkeys? Yeah, well, he could have had the Verve. He could have had so many great bands up in Manchester that have hailed from Manchester. Elbow come from there as well, whether you think they're any good or not. You know, there's plenty of great bands that he could have said, rather than take that, who are not actually a Manchester band at all. So, says Anderson, Labour took money from the taxpayer and OAPs to pay for spin doctors to make Labour look good. Is this even legal? Well, I don't know. And Liam in Warrington says, Mike, instead of going to Europe and Canada to see his left-wing friends, why doesn't two-tier come up north to the working-class areas, pick a pub and actually speak to the average British working-class man and see what they really think of him? Well, you remember, Liam, last time he came up north, he went to Southport, didn't he? Spent 19 seconds there and left because he couldn't understand what people were saying. And he didn't know what to say to them. That's the problem. Let's get a voice note from Phil.
Morning, Mike. Phil from Hertfordshire. Trump's done the right thing because this Gavin governor bloke, whoever he is, would have just let it escalate. It would have got a lot worse. And then he could have manipulated the situation for his own need against Trump. So Trump's done the right thing. Strike while the iron's hot, nip it in the bud. Well done, Trump.
Yeah, Phil, I think you're right. Neil says this, the fact that LA protesters are waving Mexican flags proves that Trump is right. What are they even doing there if their loyalty is primarily to another country? Very true. And one from Hoppy, who says, morning, Mike. Sean of Cheshire. I can't believe I've just read about the £14 billion Labour investment in Sizewell C. The company I work for have been on site for years working on Sizewell C. I call bullshine on Labour. The previous government started this. Lying toe rags. Keep up the truth, Mike. Well, the trouble is, now you don't believe a word that they say. We could put that to, of course, the crazy Ed Miliband, but I don't think he's coming on the show this morning, preferring to do the rounds of some of the other, shall we say, less combative media organisations like Sky, who won't ask him anything important, and the BBC, and maybe even Good Morning Britain, where they'll just talk to him about, you know, how green are you going to make the energy, and how great is it going to be, and how wonderful is it going to be. Get my heat pump installed. What a load of old rubbish. It's 19 minutes past 7.
Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:22. I'm Mike Graham, with you, of course, all the way through until 10 o'clock. Pete, back from Benidorm, has sailed through passport control. He says, Mike, regarding the winter fuel allowance, I'm hoping all the Labour MPs who supported removing the allowance will now criticise Rachel Reeves, as they all believed it was the right thing to do last year. Well, this is when you find out that the politicians of this country are mainly spineless individuals who just do what they're told because their masters tell them to do so. And you can probably find great difficulty in managing to actually pinpoint disappoint any Labour MP who voted against taking away the winter fuel allowance, because they would have all said, oh, well, you know, we didn't really want to do it, but we had to do it. Lucy Powell there, as was pointed out, said there would be a run on the pound if they didn't do it. They said they wouldn't be able to keep the economy afloat if they didn't do it. They said that, you know, the $1.5 billion that they were going to make from cutting the winter fuel allowance was going to save Britain's economy. When in fact the economy has got worse since they did it, and now they're reversing it anyway. Unbelievable stuff. We hear this morning that UK regular earnings average have decreased to 5.2% in the 3 months to April, and that the rate of UK unemployment has increased to 4.6%. So more people are out of work and more people are making less money. So how does that mean the economy is improving exactly? I don't know. Can you imagine if you asked Rachel Reeves that question? Could you actually answer it? Well, we wanted to be responsible with, yes, and then you just sort of, the head explodes. That's what happens. Let's talk to Philip Ingram, former senior military intelligence officer. Philip, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. Let's have a look at what Mark Rutte has said, the head of NATO. He wants us to spend even more money on defence.
A stronger NATO means spending much more on our defence. All allies will reach the initial target of spending 2% of GDP on defence this year. At the summit in The Hague, I expect allied leaders will agree to spend 5% of GDP on defence. It will be a NATO-wide commitment and a defining moment for the alliance. There are two parts to this new defence spending plan. 3.5% will be invested in our core military requirements, while the rest will go towards defence and security-related investments, including infrastructure and building industrial capacity. 5% is not some figure plucked from the air. It's grounded in hard facts. The fact is, we need a quantum leap in our collective defence. The fact is, we must have more forces and capabilities to implement our defence plans in full. The fact is, danger will not disappear.
It's not plucked out of the air, Philip, but is he right? Because it sounds like it's plucked out of the air.
No, it's not plucked out of the air. During the Cold War, we were spending between 6 and 8% at different times on our defence, and therefore they'll have examined what's happened in the Cold War. They'll have examined what's needed to get many European countries up to what an acceptable standard of defence now, and combine that with the current threat, which is even greater than it was during the Cold War.
Yeah.
So I think this is cheap compared to what it could be.
Presumably during the Cold War, though, there was a lot more American involvement in terms of just hardware, wasn't there? There was a lot more, you know, American sort of bases filled with planes and filled with American airmen and filled with missiles and all the rest of it. I don't know if that's still the case, is it?
Oh, there was, and there's still a significant US presence in Europe. But we were spending between 6 and 8%. 5, 6, 7%. It varied depending which government was in as it came through. Right. But the Americans were not quite spending that much, but they were spending in cash terms and provision of capability more than anyone else. But the numbers are eye-watering. If you want the numbers, I've got those on the top of my head.
Yeah, go on.
Right, we're currently on 2.3%, which is about 65.6 billion.
Right.
If we go to 3%, that's about 85 billion. If we go to 3.5%, which Mark Rutte says is on our core military capability, that's 100 billion for the UK. If we go to 5%, that's 142 billion. Chancellor Rachel Reeves is going to have some very difficult decisions to make on Wednesday.
Well, she's going to have to take the winter fuel allowance back for a start, isn't she? After having just reversed that one, she's left to go back the other way. But, I mean, is that every year or is that a sort of a fixed amount of money?
No, that's every year.
That's every year.
And this is where it is. Now, that 1.5%, that difference between 100 billion and 142 billion invested in infrastructure, that infrastructure can be roads to our military bases. That can be increased power. So that could be allocated to make us more independent in power terms. That could go to the new Sizewell C that the government says they're announcing, even though under the last government the building work had already started.
Yes.
And it can go into building defence industry. So it can be money that's allocated to universities that are bringing STEM students through for technology and various other bits and pieces. Right. So actually it's good for the country.
Well, it could well be, but I mean, again, Sizewell C, 14 billion, that's dwarfed by what you're suggesting is going to have to be spent to get us to war readiness. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer said just last week.
Moving to war-fighting readiness. When we are being directly threatened by states with advanced military forces, the most effective way to deter them is to be ready. And frankly, to show them that we're ready.
And, I mean, how far away are we from what he says there, that we are going to be war ready? I mean, we're not war ready, are we?
We're nowhere near war ready. And the Strategic Defence Review that's just been announced is, you know, it's a good paper, but it is talking about jam tomorrow. But if you go through the paper, it's not saying what sort of jam. It's saying we need to examine what sort of jam we possibly want, and we need to work out what the different flavours are, and we need to work out how much sugar we put in it as to whether it meets it. So there's nothing certain in it, and therefore it's pushing the hard decisions off. The hard decisions need to be made today. You know, we do not have any tracked artillery systems in the UK today. Right. That is one of the biggest systems that is being used in Ukraine in the fight against Russia, and will be used in any modern future battlefield. You know, it's criminal that we don't have these capabilities, and the fact that the defence chiefs have all come together and say, hey, we support this. This is really good. It's not fixing the problems that we have today. And those problems have come from the last Tory government, but also all the governments beforehand. Yeah. The rot started under Tony Blair.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the thing is, I mean, in terms of the provision of whether it's 3% or 3.5%, even before you get into the NATO conversation, Keir Starmer last week and John Healey, the Defence Secretary, neither one of them could actually say when that would be. They talked about, you know, in the next Parliament, very possibly. So you're talking, you know, even in their terms, if they want to do it, 5 or 6 years away.
Oh, you're talking 10 or 12 years away in the language that they've used in the Strategic Defence Review. You know, a lot of the you know, it's when we can afford it. It's when the money is available. It's we need to examine this. It's this should be put as a priority, but not this is going to be a priority. It's should, could, possibly, and it's perfect language for government to turn around and go, oh, well, we just couldn't be bothered doing it at the moment. Right. But then defence needs to get better at spending the money that it's got. You know, we've got a significantly larger budget than the Poles. We're converting 143 Challenger 2 tanks to Challenger 3. The Poles have just bought 1,000, and the Poles have just bought 1,000 artillery pieces. Right. You know, we're getting it wrong in our spending.
Yes, well, that doesn't surprise me. We're getting pretty much everything wrong at this moment in time, but thank you very much indeed. Philip Ingram, MBE, their former senior military intelligence officer, saying that, you know, it's all very well for Keir Starmer to say we're going to be war ready. Well, apparently we're not for another 10 years, maybe 15, by which time we might have been overtaken. And invaded, and, you know, who knows what. This from Benny, who says, I'm surprised Harry and Meghan aren't at the LA riots. Maybe they'll show up a bit later on with some cookies and some jam from the fridge. Love, Meghan. Brian says, morning, Mike, I hope the next U-turn will be for the farmers. Well, anything's possible now. You know, this is the problem with failing government. You know, once the rot sets in, once they go, we can maybe just U-turn on that, and, you know, we don't want to admit that we were wrong, so just pretend the economy's going better than it was. What is now the reference point, and what is now the justification for keeping the inheritance tax on farmers? Because there doesn't seem to be one. It was another very unpopular thing to do. So why not reverse that as well? More bad news, by the way. This is from Julian Jessup, one of our favourite economists who we get on the show quite regularly. He's just tweeted this. Provisional HMRC PAYE data suggests that payroll employment fell by 109,000 in May. That's 109,000 people not working. This is what happens when an incoming government makes it much more expensive to employ people. Well, fixing the economy, indeed. Let's get a voice note from Gaz.
Morning, Mike. Great show, mate. Gaz from Pontefract. Labour claiming that they've fixed the foundations of the economy and everything, all rubbish, as we know. And obviously claiming that, then she cannot raise taxes anytime in the near future. So she's just going to borrow more and keep borrowing and make the deficit even more enormous than it already is. What a laugh. Anyway, mate, great show again. Have a good day.
It is unbelievable, isn't it? Fixing the foundations. Shall we have a check and see if the Prime Minister still wants to do that?
And that's why this project has always been about fixing the foundations of our country.
I'm sorry, this makes you laugh, doesn't it? It's just rubbish. It's complete rubbish. Mike says, Lawrence, great show as usual. You should be giving what's going on in Northern Ireland some coverage this morning. The rest of the UK needs to know. I don't know what's going on in Northern Ireland this morning. We'll check it out, though, for you. Let's see what we can do. 7:33.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And that's why this project has always been about fixing the foundations of our country.
Fixing the foundations of our country. 7:35 in the morning. The UK average regular earnings have decreased to 5.2% in the last 3 months to April, and the rate of UK unemployment has increased to 4.6%. And Julian Jessup just said that PAYE has dropped off in the month of May by 109,000, which means that 109,000 fewer people are actually in employment as a result of the rise in national insurance that this government brought in. Brilliant. They've now reversed the winter fuel payment debacle. Let's talk to Chris Brooks now, Head of Policy at Age UK. Chris, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
I seem to remember we spoke about this last year when the winter fuel allowance was being withdrawn, and I think you and other sort of charity bosses were talking about, you know, it would be better if they reconsidered it, it would be better if they tempered it slightly, it might even be better if they postponed it until, you know, next winter so that people could get used to exactly what was going to happen. But all of the wise words that we all came out with at the time were just ignored, weren't they? We were told that there'd be a run on the pound if they didn't, you know, slash the winter fuel payments, that we couldn't afford them, that we needed to claw back the money. You know, all that now seems to have been forgotten.
Yeah, well, at the time, just under a year ago when it was announced, we were very clear that it was just not a good time to do it, and it wasn't handled very well. It was just giving people no notice ahead of the winter, and we hear from pensioners all the time who rely on the winter fuel payment. Yeah. So it was really unfortunate to take it away from so many people, especially those on very low incomes who don't claim their benefit entitlement and who really need it just to keep the heating on. Right. So yeah, I mean it wasn't done very well, but now we're very pleased now that there's been a U-turn on it. It's definitely going to help a lot of people this winter that they're going to get payments.
And I mean, even the way they're now doing it, they could have easily done it like this last year, couldn't they? I mean, where they're saying, I mean, it sounds a bit convoluted, but they're basically giving it to everybody. And if you make over, or you've got over £35,000 in earnings, you're basically going to send it back, or they're going to claw it back in some way, shape or form. I mean, they could have done this last year, couldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they could have done it last year. If they're doing it now, it sort of follows that it could have happened initially. I mean, I guess they were trying to save money, and so they went for the sort of the nuclear option of taking it away from almost everybody, and now they found it hasn't worked, so they've had to row back on that. So now it means that 9 million pensioners will receive the winter fuel payment, which is very good. I mean, there are lots of people as well who aren't necessarily on the very lowest incomes, but who are really, really struggling. You know, a lot of people, even on modest incomes, find it really difficult to keep the lights on, keep the lights on, keep the heating on over the winter. So it's really, really beneficial for lots and lots of pensioners. And it's definitely a big step in the right direction. Yeah. We're very pleased.
Because for a lot of them, the £300 was a lifeline, wasn't it? And the worry, I suppose, for a lot of people is that it's not so much whether or not they could afford it or not. It's about whether they were frightened to put the heating on because of how much it might cost. Because also the rates of pay for the rates of the charging for fuel now and the electricity bills and the gas bills are so high that people are just scared to put it on at all.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a big confidence issue. So lots of people need to know how much money they've got coming in that they can set aside to pay for the heating bills. And so obviously if things are chopping and changing, it's really difficult to plan ahead. So hopefully it's now clear that for this winter at least, people can turn the heating on because they will have that extra couple of £100 coming in, which can make the difference. Obviously, as you say, energy prices have been very high for the last few years, and I think a lot of the support hasn't risen as much. So it's been really, really tough times for lots and lots of people, and not just pensioners as well. Lots of other people in society have been really, really struggling. It's really important that we can, as a society, make sure that people, particularly people who are living in very vulnerable circumstances, are able to turn their heating on. It's kind of a bit of a shame in the 21st century Britain if we can't enable everybody to keep warm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, is it possible to know even how much the damage was that was caused by this particular policy? Because clearly, you know, people may have become unwell, people may have become ill, some people may even have passed away as a result of some of this stuff that's been going on. But we'll probably never know, really, will we?
No, I don't think you can necessarily directly link or prove exactly what happened. Yeah. We do know that if people are living in cold homes, particularly older people, then they're more likely to get sick and they're more likely to have health complications. So that's obviously very bad for people. It's bad for the NHS as well, as it puts extra strain on the health services. So yeah, it's just really important all round that we can make sure people can keep warm.
Yeah, and that is the terrible state of play right now. Good to talk to you, Chris. Thanks very much indeed. Chris Brooks, Head of Policy at Age UK there. How about this from Steve, who says, Mike, at the weekend I googled national debt, and apparently since the last UK general election the government has accumulated approximately 148.3 billion in additional debt in the last full financial year, with £20.2 billion borrowed in April 2025 alone. The total national debt now stands at around £2.8 trillion, which is roughly equal to the country's annual gross domestic product. So much for the Tories' so-called black hole. Steve's in Brixton. Well, this is the problem, isn't it? Because when you look at that sort of figure and you look at those types of reports, when we talk about, you know, spending 5% of the government's, the country's GDP on defence, it is a bit of a drop in the ocean. I mean, it sounds like a lot, 150 billion, possibly more than that. But the amount of debt in this country is absolutely incredible. It's hard to believe that we can even exist as a nation with this much debt. I mean, Peter Hitchens talks about this all the time, and how on earth this government can continue to convey to the public that we are somehow doing well, that we have now been able to give the money back to pensioners for their winter fuel because the government has managed to make the economy better. It's complete and utter balderdash. Nan in Wales says, good morning, Mike. I think the Labour government are doing a bloody good job of preparing us for war. Only this war will be against the bleeding government. They have to go. Well, preparing us for civil war, I think, is what some people are saying. One from Susan, who says, Mike, I sent a letter to President Trump 4 weeks ago asking him to help us from our incompetent government. Heaven help us all. And Sean in Norfolk, Labour has turned the foundations into quicksand. Great job, Richard III. Yeah, well played. It's 7:42, back after this.
When he was initially charged by the Crown Prosecution Service, he was charged with causing harassment, alarm or distress to the religious institution of Islam.
Yeah.
And that charge was publicised by the Metropolitan Police. They subsequently withdrew that charge because it was a nonsense charge, as pointed out.
There was a blasphemy charge, and we don't have a blasphemy law in this country, we keep being told.
Well, exactly. So we think they have a particular responsibility to do more to protect Mr. Koscom now that this credible threat to his life has emerged.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, 7:45. Lots going on. Lots of you have got things to say. And also, of course, I promised to report in to you on what's going on in Northern Ireland. And, of course, there were some riots over there in Ballymena, which is a place not far from Belfast over in Northern Ireland. Apparently there were riots there last night. Missiles were thrown at police, homes burnt after a sex attack sparked anti-immigration protest. Armoured police officers and other emergency crews responded to the serious disorder. It's in County Antrim on Monday evening, and you can see some pictures on the Sun website. Around 2,500 people had gathered in town to protest after a teenage girl was the victim of an alleged sexual assault. Two boys aged 14 appeared in court. They appear to be migrants from Romania who have been living in that part of the world. They used a Romanian interpreter when they appeared at Coleraine Magistrates Court yesterday morning. A large group of protesters had gathered close to where the alleged sexual assault had taken place. People initially coming together to support the family of the girl, but it all got a bit violent, and masked yobs were throwing missiles, including cans of paint and glass bottles, PSNI vehicles. So we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, it's going to be something that's going to be fairly what you might call inflammatory and inflamed over the next few days while that goes on. But there is a case, a prosecution going on, of course, so there'll be a limit to what we can do about it until the court case actually happens. Andy says this in Sheffield: Mike, that well-known activist Greta Thunberg has been pictured with her frog hat on. Hopefully she'll be wearing some frog Wellingtons too. No activist will be seen dead without a frog hat and wellies. Do her puppet masters now realise she's becoming irrelevant? Well, I mean, you do wonder, don't you? And on the subject of Beyonce giving away tickets to food banks, Mary in Kent says, morning, Mike. Maybe Beyonce's trying to do what Taylor Swift does when she comes here on tour and donates to the food banks. Taylor Swift makes substantial donations to the Trussell Trust and local food banks wherever she is performing. Well, indeed she does. Let's get a voice note from Pete first and then David.
Are you sure that actually wasn't Max Headroom there yesterday? I've got some more speeches to do.
The guy sounds like a South Park character. Entrepreneur.
He does really, doesn't he? Let's have a listen once again to that Starmer AI tweet video.
We're looking at how can AI speed up discharges from hospitals. Same with the asylum backlog. Or teachers, helping them personalise the lessons for their pupils. In every case, we can show AI innovation making a difference for working people. We should be able to look every parent in the eye in every region in Britain and say, look what technology can deliver for you. We can put money in your pocket. We can create wealth in your community. We can create good jobs, vastly improve our public services, and build a better future for your children. That, to me, is the opportunity we must seize. That's what my plan for change will deliver.
Yeah, but it's all pie in the sky, isn't it? That's what my plan for change will deliver. It means nothing. You know, let's make sure that we can create some jobs. Well, great, but 109,000 jobs seem to have disappeared in May. And we've now got job figures down. The rate of UK unemployment has gone up. So more people are actually out of work than they were last month. And that's under a Labour government. So don't please give us this nonsense that you're creating jobs. You're not. Don't give us this nonsense that you're, changing the world, because you're not. AI, even by your own admission from the Minister of Science and Technology in your own government, Keir Starmer, a bloke by the name of Peter Kyle, in case you don't remember him, He said AI is quite a dangerous thing. He said that, you know, it tells lies. You can't rely on it for everything. You have to be very careful how and when you use it and for what. And Keir Starmer seems to think it's a so silver bullet for fixing everything, fixing the foundations and putting more money in working people's pockets. Why is he so obsessed with working people? I mean, just ridiculous. Anyway, we'll come back to that in a moment. Phil from Hertfordshire says, just a query about what your guest speaker has said. How can you pay taxes if you are undocumented? This is about the rioting in Los Angeles. There's always more than meets the eye in these cases, and probably your guest has just been fed this information by somebody that wants to make it look worse, and actually it's all just the truth. Well, there's no question that, you know, they've got a massive immigration problem in Southern California, and an awful lot of the immigration is people coming in from Mexico. And a lot of people that come in from Mexico come in illegally. And basically that's what Trump is supposed to be fixing. And that's why people wanted to elect Trump, because they wanted to make sure that fewer people as possible are actually working illegally in the United States of America. Here, of course, we don't have the same problem, because here an awful lot of the economic migrants that come in don't work. Or they certainly, if they do, they work in a black economy. They certainly don't pay tax. That's way over the yardarm. Let's talk to Jake Wallace-Simons, author of Israelophobia and a columnist, of course. Jake, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
The ridiculousness of the Greta Thunberg escapade yesterday doesn't fail to amaze me, really. I mean, there's a picture of her having been, as she said, arrested and kidnapped by Israeli forces, and then being given a sandwich, where she seems to be smiling quite nicely. Let's have a look at what that ridiculous video was that you put out when she was detained yesterday.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
I mean, a pretty ludicrous use of the word kidnapped, apart from anything else. I mean, you were amongst many people who pointed out that actually this is what a real kidnapping looks like, and showed pictures of what actually happened on October the 7th, which was so horrific. I think a lot of people still haven't recovered from it.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is almost crippling when you watch those pictures. I mean, she's on a boat filled with less than 1 truckload of aid, which won't really help anybody. Apparently, according to the Israeli authorities, by the time the boat arrived, the climate activists, or the whatever they are activists, had actually eaten quite a lot of it themselves, and yet still had an appetite for a further sandwich provided by the Israelis to them, and then had the cheek to suggest that they were kidnapped. Now, that kidnapping video apparently was recorded quite a long time before they even left, in advance, just in case it happened. It wasn't even recorded at the time. And we've now found out, the Telegraph has reported, that the whole flotilla was organised by an organisation led by somebody who has previously been linked to Hamas. Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Yeah. So the whole thing is, you know, is so ironic. And the thing I find interesting is her transition, if I can use that word, from climate campaigner to Gaza campaigner. There was a moment where when people were starting to go on about Gaza rather than the climate, she jumped on that bandwagon and said, no climate justice on occupied land, as if Hamas, their first policy was going to be net zero. Yeah. You know? And now she's gone full on, and it just strikes me that what really underpins it is not a concern for the climate or a concern for the Palestinians. It's a concern for herself and her own teenage tantrum about the West and about the establishment. She hasn't yet got it out of her system. And sadly, I count Gary Lineker, Dawn French and all the other Muppets in that same category.
They really are. There's so many of them, aren't there? And I mean, one of the things that the Israeli authorities said they were going to do, which I think they have done, was to actually show Greta and her collection of idiots who call themselves activists some footage, actually, from what happened truly on October the 7th in Israel at the Nova Festival and in the homes of the people who lived in the kibbutz. And I mean, I imagine that she's never seen anything like that, because if you had seen that, as you have and as I have, you couldn't possibly say the things that she says.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, you can only sustain a worldview like Greta Thunberg has if you keep yourself away from reality. As soon as you're in touch with actual real people and real suffering and the reality on the ground, you just can't sustain that ideological way of seeing things. Unfortunately, the latest news I'm hearing from Israel is that she and her compadres have refused to watch that footage. And of course, the brutal Israelis have no way of forcing them to watch it if they really don't want to. So she's keeping herself insulated from the actual facts over which she purports to have such passions. And the whole thing is it just really drives home that this sort of activism is not really about the real people. It's not about the real Palestinians or the real Israelis. You can see that by how she's cosplaying on our screens at the moment, culturally appropriating the Palestinian keffiyeh. She wouldn't do that with a Mexican sombrero, but she's doing it with a keffiyeh.
Right.
It's not about them. It's not about the reality. It's about herself. It's about how much she loathes her teachers, the establishment, and the West. And look, you know, the Israelis were trying to do us all a favour by educating her a little bit, but this isn't the first time she's refused free education, as we know.
Yeah, well, quite. And I mean, this is the thing, you know, there was no mention, was there, of the hostages that are still sitting in tunnels underneath the streets of Gaza, who have been there now for such a long time. No mention of whether Hamas should, in fact, let them go. No mention of what the people on October the 7th felt, what damage was done to Israel-Gaza relations. Nothing at all. I mean, it's such a ludicrous state of affairs that somebody like her thinks that she could even, sort of insert herself into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really symptomatic of this attempt to turn the whole thing on its head and wipe out and erase the cause for the war in the first place. This isn't a war that Israel started. It isn't a war that Israel wanted. You and I all remember very vividly how it started, and it wasn't pleasant. In fact, it was deeply, deeply shocking in a way that hasn't shocked us before. And now those hostages are still there. Israel still has to get them back. I mean, look, would we want the British government to abandon our people if they were brutally taken hostage and kept in dungeons just over the border? We wouldn't. We would want them to get our friends and family and community members back. And that's what the Israelis are trying to do. It's obvious. And yet Greta Thunberg, in failing to even watch the footage of October the 7th when it was put in front of her, and in failing to acknowledge the reasons for the war, is trying to rewrite history and make out as if this is some sort of unprovoked Israeli brutality. And you see that again and again, not just from Greta Thunberg and activists, but also, I'm afraid, from a lot of the media coverage, from the United Nations, from a lot of the NGOs, trying to put this across as if it's simply, you know, the war came out of the brain of Benjamin Netanyahu for political reasons, and that's why he's causing so much devastation and suffering. That's totally, totally untrue.
Well, only in the last couple of days, the BBC have been accused once again by the Board of Deputies, I believe, over a Jeremy Bowen report, which was being carried on their sort of front page of their website just the other day. Jeremy Bowen appears to have lost his mind. You know, I mean, he used to be a well-respected foreign correspondent. Even years ago, I used to know him quite well. But he seems to have now gone completely over to the side of not just propagating for Palestine, but propagating for Hamas.
Yeah, I mean, it's done on the BBC. It's done really in quite a subtle way, because they always put in a few lines to acknowledge October the 7th. You get the sense they're doing so under duress or because the guidelines force them to do so. But the whole weight of their coverage really is about Israeli atrocities. And reading it, if you miss that line, then the whole, 99% of it is really about Israel. And of course, they don't mention any of the Israeli figures, which say, for example, that about half of the dead at least are terrorists, which is better than what we've done in our wars under more difficult circumstances in many cases. They miss out that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it does feel like, I'm sure they don't mean to be propagandists, but unfortunately, that's how they're acting, because they're taking their lead a lot of the time from Hamas sources, from compromised UN sources, and the whole machine is geared up, really, to give one impression in quite a sophisticated way.
Yeah, it really is. And what about Dawn French? I mean, that sort of came out of left field, didn't it? I mean, did you have any idea that Dawn French harboured these kind of rather bizarre views?
Well, do you know what? If you'd have asked me to guess, I think I probably could have guessed. I mean, the problem is it's this echo chamber, that milieu in which she lives. You know, the lovies, the actors, the artists, the singers, the musicians. Apart from the great Tom York, the singer of Radiohead, who's stood against this stuff. All the rest of them. You know, we've had artists for Gaza and novelists signing an open letter for Gaza the other day, as if they know. I mean, novelists, literally their job is to make up stories. They jump on the bandwagon because it's trendy and because it's fashionable. Like I say, just like Greta Thunberg, it's not about the reality. And in fact, I've got a friend in Gaza who I talk about quite a lot from my days as a foreign correspondent, who I've kept in touch with quite a lot over the last couple of years. And he hates these people as much as you and I. And he was saying to me just the other day, let them come to Gaza and change places with me. But he added, there's no transgender bathroom here, but they're welcome to come and give it a crack. They can see through this stuff. It's just that, everyone can see through this stuff, from the people in Gaza to you and I to the man on the street. The only people who can't see through their own hypocrisy is the people themselves.
Yeah, shocking, really. Great to talk to you, Jake. Thanks very much indeed. Jake Wallace-Simons, author of Israelophobia, a columnist, of course, as well. He's got a big piece in the Mail today, if you want to check that out. Christine says this: I'm not eligible for winter fuel allowance as I'm not of pension age yet. I had a text yesterday. They were asking for my details, national insurance number and bank details to give me money. It was a plausible-looking government page. Is this a scam that could catch out pensioners on the back of the announcement that more people will qualify for the allowance? Beware. Well, it could well be, because it might well be, particularly now that we're being told that people will be given money which then somehow has to be sent back. Maybe they'll ask you to send money to somewhere that you shouldn't be sending it to. That's entirely possible. Roger says this: if Labour do bankrupt Britain over the next 4 years, will our £3.25 trillion debt be written off? Well, I suppose you could try doing that, couldn't you? Sort of Katie Price style. Just go bankrupt and then sort of start again and carry on and just go, yeah, we've lost all that money, just never mind. Not a problem. Coming up in the next hour, we've got Graeme Stringer MP, Labour MP for Blackley and Middleton South. He's one of the few people who was quite vociferous about the winter fuel allowance being taken away from pensioners. We'll find out what he thinks. Also, we'll tell you an amazing tale of what the majority of Britons think about net zero. This is Talk. Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's the one show where you do not have to be worried about judgmental people because we'll do all the judging for you. Let's just have a look at how Humphrey Useless is now spending his time.
There goes your career, mate.
Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in. He's jumping there. There he goes. He goes over the bar. Hello, and lady. Unfortunately, it catches on his Johnson.
If he's Plank of the Week, he's got a sizable plank.
That's a whole different show.
Plank of the Week, Fridays at 7 on Talk.
Hi, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan, and I've got a message for you. Welcome back to this blockbuster edition of What Just Happened. It really is a good one, I think. It's so funny that people keep calling me...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham. The day is upon us. It is, of course, Tuesday, the 10th of June. It's going to be quite nice today, I think. Don't forget, there's a Morning Glory podcast coming out every single day right after this show finishes at 10 o'clock, around about 10:15. The best of the show, you can get it, download it from wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to it as well, if you like. We're doing quite well in the old podcast charts. Dan Hodges wrote just yesterday, like I wrote, Rachel Reeves' credibility as Chancellor is being steadily destroyed. This is on the back of the news yesterday that they're going to basically reverse the taking away of the winter fuel payment from pensioners. The front page of the Daily Mail this morning says winter fuel humiliation. After a huge U-turn, Reeves refuses to apologise, bizarrely claiming she's been right to cut the handout in the first place. Starmer is ridiculed, it says, for suggesting that moves are now possible because Labour has fixed our stricken economy. Well, clearly Labour has not fixed our stricken economy because UK average regular earnings decreased to 5.2% in the 3 months to April, and the rate of UK unemployment has actually gone up to 4.6%. Meanwhile, in the month of May alone, it looks like 109,000 people have lost their jobs as a result of the national insurance hike, which means that employers cannot afford to employ quite as many people. It is absolutely extraordinary that this government continues to try and pull the wool over everybody's eyes and tell us that they're fixing the foundations and that, in fact, the economy is improving. It absolutely is not, and they are absolutely not fixing anything. It is completely and utterly ridiculous. We're going to speak to Graeme Stringer MP, MP for Labour in Blackley and Middleton South, a very sensible man and somebody who has quite often been critical of this Starmer government, much against the better judgment of many other backbench Labour MPs who are sort of slavishly in support of him. He made a big speech yesterday, a tech summit. Unfortunately, his auto cue stopped working and he had to ramble. This is how he did it.
So let me start by thanking you all for being here. We're going to have a really good tech week. We've already kicked off yesterday. We've got some major announcements to make, some real partnership to do together, and I'm just so pleased to have this opportunity, this privilege of opening this morning. A real pleasure for me. And my constituency, the area I represent, is London. I'm a London MP, and that means that I understand firsthand just how important it is for our sector as we go forward. And, you know, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's the spirit in London, as we go forward, this is hugely, hugely important.
Whether it's the spirit in London as we go forward, this is hugely, hugely important. We can all learn to speak like that. You just keep continually saying absolutely nothing while mentioning one word after another. For example, you know, here we are this morning. We're so glad to be here. Knowing as you do that I am from London, you know how important this will be to me going forward. See how you do it? It's very easy. Starmer speak. I can teach you. This is Morning Glory. Joe says this in Leicestershire. Morning, Mike. Chris Brooks just mentioned that they cut the winter fuel allowance to save money, but in the same week as cutting it, spaffed millions to international farmers, so nothing to do with saving money, really, was it? I don't think it was. That's the problem. Pete says heating allowance should be paid directly to energy suppliers because it was originally given out before Christmas, and I suspect most pensioners stayed cold in order to buy grandkids presents. Make sure it is spent on heating and nothing else. Well, you can't really do that, Pete, because if the money's paid out to people so that it goes towards their general standard of living, you know, they absolutely need to use it for heating if that's what they wish to do. If they don't need it for heating, then they just happen to be lucky. But, I mean, let's face it, most of us spend most of our lives giving money out to the government and not getting very much in return. So we'll talk to Graeme Stringer about this in a moment. First, a voice note from Darren on AI.
Morning, Mike. Darren from Suffolk. Great show. You don't need AI in hospital, Mike. You need CS, common sense. When you walk into a hospital and you've been scratched with a cat on your nose and you wait 4 hours to get some antibiotics, they should be getting rid of the chaff. You should be walking up there going, what's happened? Yeah, I've been scratched by a cat. Here's your antibiotics. Now bugger off. It's the same with anything that's going on. The hospital bed blocking. Why are the people can't go back to the community or their homes? Because all the transport is taking the people into the hospital, not taking them out, because they got rid of most of the transport. You could get the community to do volunteering. It's common sense, Mike. It's not AI.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, to wonder about whether AI is the sort of source of all fixes for everything is wrong. And I think Keir Starmer's obviously making that assumption without really thinking. I mean, Peter Kyle, who's the Minister for Science and Technology, actually said on Sunday, when he was on with Laura Kunsberg, that you have to be very careful with AI because parts of it are, shall we say, untruthful, to say the least. And you can't just rely on it as a kind of catch-all cure for anything that's gone wrong. Graeme Stringer's here. Very good morning to you, Graeme.
Good morning.
Labour's taken a bit of a shellacking this morning in the papers, which I suppose you wouldn't be surprised to see on the front page of the Daily Mail. But a lot of people saying, They haven't fixed the economy. How can they say they fixed the economy and that's how they can now reverse the winter fuel payment?
I don't understand why this government or any other government, because they all do it when they make a mistake.
Yeah.
And the winter fuel withdrawal was a mistake. I mean, it was in the margin of error of the huge budget that governments control. You can't be precise about that amount of money. It was a mistake. It wasn't in the overall scheme of things that important. It hurt a number of vulnerable people. There could have been changes that wouldn't have hurt people, like taxing the winter fuel allowance for those of us who get it and don't really need it. So I think, you know, British people are reasonable, and if you say we're human beings, we've made a mistake, sorry, this is what we're going to do now, I think this government and other governments would get a better response.
Yes, I think they would be much more sort of better received if they told the truth, because I think people have lost faith in politics, generally speaking, in this country, Graeme. I think they lost faith in the Tories, which is why they didn't want to see them having any more years in government. But I think they've lost faith even quicker now in this government, because they keep... It's always as if they're sort of pathologically telling us things that simply aren't true, and they continue to do it every day.
I agree with that, and I think when it comes to the budget, I'm hoping that Rachel Reeves will tell some hard truths, that we are in a difficult situation, we have priorities, and more than that, and any Chancellor can say that, it's explaining in simple terms what those priorities will be. There will have to be cuts in part of the budget, or there will have to be tax increases. That's just how it is. And explaining why those priorities are priorities and what changes are going to be made is important. At the moment, I go everywhere, and I don't normally get asked about Mauritius in supermarkets, but people say, if there's going to be cuts, why can we find £30 billion to give to Mauritius? I mean, it's not a sophisticated question, no, but it's very difficult for Labour MPs to defend the government on that. And there are other areas. I mean, you talked about it regularly on your show about immigration and what needs to be done to control it. I think tackling those questions head on and being honest about what is possible and what isn't possible would give people more faith in government. When I go to public meetings, I try to talk as honestly as I possibly can, say some difficult things sometimes, but I find people respond better to that than having a sheet given out by government PR people which say lines to say, the world's great, everything's wonderful. It's not.
No, indeed. But you're very much a lone figure in this, Graeme. I mean, I don't know too many Labour MPs in this government or in the backbenches of this government who are as honest as you are about what you think. Because, I mean, what do you actually say to people if they ask you that question about the Chagos Islands and they say, where's that money coming from? What do you tell them?
Well, I do. Well, I tell them what my views are. And I think we have to get out of some of the international treaties that were made 75 and 80 years ago. You wouldn't buy an 80-year-old car, would you? You wouldn't buy most things from the early 1950s. And some of the international treaties that were right then and were very progressive after the Second World War, when there were refugees all over Europe who'd been bombed and devastated. Yeah. The international agreements were right for that, but they're not right for a world in which there is jet travel from all over the world and there are international gangs exploiting that situation. We need to change the rules, basically. That's what I got into politics for, to make the rules better, to improve things for people.
And do you find that you're given sort of lines that you're supposed to trot out? I know you don't do it, but I mean, do people try and make you do that?
No, is the honest answer. I think in one sense, the centre of the party's given up on me, but I get emails that say, that give leaflets that say that things are good and getting better, and sometimes they are. I mean, this government is doing some things that are good, like all governments, and some things that are difficult, and some things that are a mistake.
Right.
So I get all that information with what the line is, and I think about it and try and represent the people who've elected me as well as I can.
But that's the danger with this government, isn't it? Because if they do continue with this kind of false narrative that everything's great and we're fixing everything and it's much better than it was, you know, when something does happen, which is genuinely good, you know, people aren't going to believe it. People are going to say, hang on a minute, you know, they said they were fixing the economy. What do they mean that they've now got more people working? Oh, the figures have gone down. You know, when something actually positive happens, they'll struggle to convince anyone.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of the boy who cried wolf, isn't it?
It kind of is. I mean, it's not difficult, this. It's not hard to see what's going wrong, is it?
No, and I think partly because the press jump on anything that is a change of policy, because they have different papers have different political views. But I think out there, people know if government ministers are telling the truth. When ministers find it difficult to answer direct questions, people get very annoyed about it.
Yeah.
It's actually much easier to be straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, there's still one newspaper that's sort of batting for Labour, I think, and it's the Times, funnily enough. They're still being quite nice to them, and it says their front page headline today is "Millions Escape Winter Fuel Cuts," which is rather a nice way of saying that they've done a U-turn without saying it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, exactly right. Listen, Graeme, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Graeme Stringer MP for Blackley and Middleton South. A real diamond in the rough, if you like. I don't mean that in any way derogatorily. I mean that he is a guy who speaks his mind, he tells the truth, he's with the Labour government and he supports them, but he doesn't support everything that they do, and he thinks they're absolutely and utterly wrong to pretend that things are good when they're absolutely not good. You know, we've learned this morning that 109,000 jobs have gone south back in May last month because basically people can't afford to employ people anymore because of the fact that national insurance has risen to such an extent that it's too expensive. We've also got ridiculous notions this morning of the government telling us that they've fixed the economy and that's how they've been able to afford to give the winter fuel payment back to pensioners, when in fact nothing could be further from the truth. Earnings are down, unemployment is up. It's that simple. Now, one story that came across the desk late last night was pictures from Heathrow Airport where a man was chased across the tarmac after he managed to escape from a plane. He was in the process of being deported to India, believe it or not, but videos posted on social media showed the man sprinting away from airport staff near Terminal 2. He was eventually captured by two men who jumped out of a van and detained him, who I don't think was actually connected, those men, with the Home Office. There was an escort supplier taking him supposedly onto the plane, but he somehow managed to get away, and you can see him there just running across the tarmac at Heathrow Airport, a secure area, being chased by people not very enthusiastically who don't look like they could run very far. We're going to talk now to Gary Costin, who's a former detainee custody office manager who's worked at Heathrow. He's going to give us an insight into exactly how this kind of thing could happen. Gary, very good morning to you.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. This is extraordinary footage, that, wasn't it, of a guy just running around on what is supposed to be one of the most secure areas in Britain, isn't it?
Correct. There's so many fundamental errors gone, schoolboy errors from the start for that to happen. I can only give my opinion what happened, as I wasn't there.
Right.
But I had 15 years deporting people to very many hostile environments, and this isn't the first time that an attempted escape or escapes have happened under the contract of Mighty.
Yeah.
These four, there's at least four I could name right now if you would like me to, but that's down to yourself. But
yeah, no, I mean, my understanding of this particular situation is that this guy was already on the plane, and the plane, I presume, must have had, you know, steps going up to it rather than, you know, one of those walkways that you can go down. And he said he wanted to use the toilet, and instead of using the toilet, he just ran off down the steps.
I presume that's what happened. There was raised steps. The back doors of the aircraft were open.
Yeah.
If the gentleman was requested to use a toilet, which, because of how our human rights are and what we've got to abide by, then they would have allowed him to go.
Yeah.
But fundamental errors, because he was wearing a waist restraint belt, he should have had the handles held and to and from the toilet.
Yeah. Because presumably he's wearing that because he's a dangerous individual.
Correct. They would have had risk assessments, and he would have either been a dangerous risk to people or a risk of escape. And they would have had to make that risk assessment and would have put that belt on because of that risk assessment. It doesn't look like it was put on completely correctly, as his wrists look to be free, because there is 3 sort of positions that the belt should be in, which is just placed on, which it looks like, but no one really ever used that because it's no use nor ornament. The other is in the restricted position, where his hands are in the waist, in the straps, so he can still move, use the phone, eat, etc., go to the toilet without too much problem, or there is completely secure, where his hands would have been restrained to his sides.
Right. But you say you know of other cases, Gary, where this has happened before?
Just to example, subcontractors who were working for Mighty, taking people back to Somalia, lost an individual in Turkey.
Lost him?
Lost him, and I don't believe he's ever been found.
How did they lose him?
He managed to escape through a hole in the roof in the toilet, or smoking area, I believe, and got into the general public in Turkey.
What, was this at an airport?
That was in Turkish airport, yeah. In Istanbul.
Blimey.
Another deportee managed to push past escorts on an air bridge in Heathrow, get amongst passengers, and was eventually found in the toilets hiding. Another deportee on a courtroom visit for a hearing managed to escape again out of a window. I don't know if he was ever found.
That's extraordinary.
A deportee managed to smash the window in the back of a van again on Heathrow, and it managed to get past 2 escorts. Whilst doing that, luckily enough, there was a very good team leader who's a good friend of mine, managed to apprehend him, detain him, and he was taken back into custody. That's just in the last 3 years that I know of. There may have been others that I'm not aware.
Is it an issue, Gary, of just bad training or bad equipment or bad practice? What is it?
What I would say now is there was people like myself, and there will be a lot of my ex-colleagues laughing now, because I was always willing to stand up and question the management. People like myself weren't liked in the company because we were experienced, we were good at our jobs, and we did it very well. So they did everything they could to get rid of us, either through how they did with me, getting me sacked, or making people redundant. And what I would say is the gene pool of good escorts in the company has been weakened down because there was mass recruiting and they just needed people into the job. Recruiting them was done and trained on a grand scale. Training them was done by inexperienced staff who hadn't been in the job 5 minutes, and it was like the blind leading the blind. As you saw from yesterday's footage as well, the fitness of 50% of the staff, I would say, is questionable. And there is no fitness tests whatsoever. There was thoughts and talk about bringing fitness tests in, but this didn't happen because they realised they would lose too many staff because of this. And hence, only, I'd say 50% of the staff actually care about their appearance, their fitness, and think for themselves. So when you think the demographic of most of the people that are taken back to these countries that they go back to are 20 to 30-year-old males. So most of them are pretty fit, young, when a lot of the staff these days are like myself, getting on a little bit. And there was staff even, and I hate to say this and it's embarrassing to say, that in the time I was there needed helping into vans by other staff. On one occasion I know of, by a deportee was helping a lady into a van who was escorting me out of the country.
That's incredible. Just ridiculous, isn't it? Gary, I really appreciate your time. Thanks very much indeed. Gary Costin, former detainee custody office manager, talking about how bad the system seems to be for deporting people. I lost a bloke in a Turkish airport. He was on his way to Somalia. He's never been seen since. Incredible. This guy yesterday running around Heathrow, it doesn't look like the guys were ever going to catch him. So it was down to 2 people in a van who pulled up and apparently stopped him. There he is, running away for his life, getting away from the guards, and that guard that ain't catching him. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Just another symptom of broken Britain and the asylum system. Let's get a voice note from Mark on Keir Starmer visiting Britons.
Great show. Just a quickie. Do you remember when Sir Keir went to a pub? There was video footage of it, and he got thrown out on his ear hole. This was probably about a year ago, something like that. It's very funny. But I'm pretty sure if he entered any pub in the country, he'd probably be thrown out also. He'd at least get jeered.
Yeah, well, he's been banned from Jeremy Clarkson's pub, hasn't he? One of the few people. And here he is, getting thrown out of a pub in Bath.
Man is not allowed in my pub. No, Laura. I'm not going to physically hurt him. That man. That's assault. I am not bothering you. I am not bothering him. That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Calm yourself down. Get out of my pub. Calm down. Thank you.
And there's a warm welcome around the country for Sir Keir Starmer. Yeah, fixing the foundations. Get out of my pub. All right, then. I'll take the mask off while you're at it. 25 minutes past 8.
This all comes back to a dangerous idea, and believe me, it's infected this country too, which is we don't enforce certain laws because we've decided that we just don't like them. I don't want to hear a jip, not a whiff of anything out of anybody that says, oh, I'm a rule of law, defend the rule of law. If you defend the rule of law, you defend the right of these officers to go into work, to do their job in difficult circumstances, to enforce the law, and the laws of the land say you can't break into the country illegally.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 28 minutes past 8. This is, of course, the home of common sense. We're here for you until 10 o'clock. 4 glorious hours of Morning Glory every single weekday morning. Julie Hartley-Brewer coming in just before 10 to tell us what's coming up. Perry says that Heathrow runner, he just needed the Benny Hill music. Yeah, he probably did, actually. People trying to catch the guy. They eventually stopped him because two characters in a van pulled up in front of him and jumped out and sort of shoved him to the floor. But he wasn't ever going to get caught by the marshals, was he? Ray Deportees, Mike, why don't they use ex-military to soldier for these operations? Says Mike in Brighton. Not a bad idea. Morning, Mike. AI bots, or whatever they are called, says Sonia, on the internet are potentially very dangerous. I have high blood pressure. I take tablets to control it. AI on some sites suggests natural remedies, which means people can just stop using the tablets. Equally dangerous suggestions about heart attacks, etc. Take a look. And Mike, what on earth was Starmer talking about? He is from London, etc. All of that nonsense. Nobody knows. No idea. Let's talk to Ryan Saby, Deputy Police Editor at The Sun, find out what he makes of it all. Brian, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Very well indeed. Very well indeed. I mean, Keir Starmer this morning getting a hell of a shellacking, not least on the front page of The Sun, where Rachel Reeves is also getting it in the neck because it was fuelish, so you say. So say sorry, but she won't say sorry, will she?
No, that apology wasn't forthcoming yesterday, and I don't expect it to happen in the coming days. Now, tomorrow, Wednesday, she has the spending review, where she will set out the spending plans for the next few years. And I don't expect it to happen then. But yesterday was a bad day for the government, a total capitulation. Just look at what they set out last July. They were going to take off that winter fuel payments for all but the most needy. And yesterday, almost a complete reversal. 3/4 of pensions now getting it, 9 million. And costing them a vast sum of money in the process. So it wasn't a great day for the government. We were expecting it. Keir Starmer said just the other week more pensioners would be getting that winter fuel payment. And yesterday we got the detail.
Well, this is the trouble, isn't it? Because at the end, he's had to try and sort of save face by lying about the economy. I mean, we've got news this morning that irregular earnings have decreased to 5.2% in 3 months to April. Rate of UK unemployment has increased and more people are out of work, 4.6%. Julian Jessop's put a piece out today saying that 109,000 less workers on PAYE in May because of the national insurance increase. And yet Starmer's come out and said, oh, well, of course, the reason we were able to make this U-turn was because we've improved the economy. Well, everybody knows that's just not true.
Yeah, no, they're trying to make the point that the economy has turned the corner. There is a few sort of promising economic figures, but for this year and next year, a lot of forecasts. We look at I think the World Bank, and they were looking at their figures, saying that there's actually going to be a downgrade for this year. So it's going to get really, really tricky because, as Rachel Reeves said yesterday, the sums at the moment just don't add up. She's going to have to go back to the drawing board to work out how to find this money. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it's not actually that much money, which begs the question, why did they do it in the first place? But £1.5 billion, she has created this mini black hole. She was the one talking about black holes last year when that big 22 billion amount that they came up with. But yeah, they've taken a lot of pain on this policy for very little gain.
Yeah, exactly right. Because, as you say, tiny amount of money, because in the end they also had to kind of, ameliorate some of the cuts that they were making to pensioners by giving about £500 million to local authorities to help them with their winter fuel payments anyway. So it was only likely ever to be about £1 billion. And when you look at that in the scheme of things, when you've got, the NATO chief saying you need to be spending, upwards of 150 billion a year on defence, I mean, it's literally nothing.
Yeah, I think what happened is they got into government last July. They thought, right, we need to look tough and we need to act tough. And one of those things was, why are we paying the winter fuel allowance to millionaires? Well, instead of actually just trying to work out a system where the millionaires would actually not get paid the winter fuel allowance, they actually pretty much took it off everyone apart from those claiming pension credit. And the ironic thing is, they were talking up the system of pension credit, raising awareness of it. It's then created a lot of more people rightfully to claim pension credit, which cuts into all their savings yet again. So I was speaking to Steve Webb, the former pensions minister, last night. And he said the total savings from all of this could just be a couple of £100 million. It begs the question, why do they do this in the first place?
Yeah, it really does. And it makes you wonder what's going on at the heart of Downing Street, really, doesn't it, as well? Other thing I wanted to mention to you, page 10 today, you got a piece by Sophie Winkleman, actress and campaigner, about mobile phones and smartphones for kids and why she actually wants the nanny state to step in and ban them. Very interesting piece. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I'm going to put my cards on the table here, Mike. I have 2 children, aged 13 and 11. This piece is absolute music to my ears. Now, I'm not big on when it comes to the nanny state, but on something like this, I feel like the parents obviously have to have, a role, a responsibility in policing what their children do. But there is a hell of a lot of peer pressure on those kids when it seems to be as soon as these school children get to the age of 11, they get some kind of smartphone, some kind of phone.
Yeah.
Now, Sophie Winkleman in this piece says, why can't they be just like one of these brick phones? They have very, very simple, call functions, maybe, if they need directions, that kind of thing. But all those smartphones and all those apps that they just occupy their minds, perhaps we just need to strip that down. And she was talking in response to Peter Carl at the weekend, who said there should be maybe a 2-hour limit per app, or there should be a 10 p.m. curfew. Now, Peter Carl is starting to having a look at this, but it's got real traction because I know it's popular with parents.
Yeah, it is popular with parents. But the problem for Keir Starmer, of course, is he spent a great deal of time yesterday singing the praises of AI, talking about what it can do for parents, what it can do for public services, what it can do for teachers, what it can do, for the military, for the NHS. He seems to think AI is the answer to everything. But Sophie writes in this piece today, actually, some of the AI stuff, which is being used as educational, is quite addictive and possibly dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. And that's one of the things I think she talks about, this 2-hour sort of, limit per app to actually sort of limit the amount of time that our kids are actually spending on their phones. I mean, the trouble is I see it, and I see it in the younger groups when I'm out with my children. They are on them all the time, and you can try and stop them as much as possible, but they're all on Snapchat, they're all on WhatsApp, they're all messaging, they're all sending pictures to each other. And something just has to stop because this is just getting far too addictive.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree. Ryan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Ryan Sobey, Deputy Political Editor, of course, at The Sun. A bit more breaking news for you. Marks and Spencer say they've reopened their website to customers after being forced to halt internet orders in April following a damaging cyber attack. So that has been going on for well over a month now. It's been out of commission for an awful lot of people. They've lost billions and billions of pounds worth of business because nobody could use their website. So Marks and Spencer's finally admitting that it has caused massive problems and they've now fixed it. So that's good news. Zoe in Lancashire says, don't worry, Mike. Rachel will make up the loss of winter fuel allowance by attacking some other poor innocent victims like the disabled. They are horrible, cruel, gaslighting liars. Bill in Northumberland says, good morning, Mike. Did they return this migrant to his 4-star hotel or was he actually deported? Enjoying the show. Well, good question. I assume he would have been deported, or at least he'll be in the process of being deported, because he escaped off the plane doesn't mean that he shouldn't be put back on another plane. I would hope that they did that yesterday. But it is remarkable, isn't it, to see a man just running around in what is a very, very secure part of an airport where it's supposed to be impossible to break through any kind of barriers whatsoever. Never mind escape from a plane. John in Poole says, this morning, Mike, always great to listen to Common Sense in the morning. England is living proof of what happens to a country when you let loose a bunch of half-wits to run a multi-billion pound economy. Unfortunately, England is paying the price. Yeah, I'm afraid England is paying the price. We'll come back to that. And what about the price? Angela Knight is with us coming up next. She's going to apparently be telling us about the golden age of nuclear, which Ed Miliband is selling us this morning.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:39. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Jules in Bristol says, morning, Mike, does Starmer love AI because it tells lies? AI on the wall. Who is the best Prime Minister in the world? Yeah, it may well be that. Let's get a voice note from Christine on winter fuel.
Morning, Mike. Christine from Weymouth. Do you know, this is ridiculous because so many people were then encouraged to go for the pension credit. So they're paying out more and more money. Now they're paying out the winter fuel. So it's going to cost them more money.
Yes, it doesn't make a lot of sense the way they're doing it, I must confess. Angela Knight's here, former CEO of Energy UK. Maybe she can help us out. Angela, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
It seems a very cack-handed way to change this policy, doesn't it? They've sort of, first of all, taken it all away from people, then given some of it back to some people, and now they're going to give it all back to everybody again and ask that some of them give it back to them.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
pretty
sort
complicated
of
stuff,
isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know, if you're going to make a U-turn, excuse me, if you're going to make a U-turn, the first thing they do is you do it quickly, and this one hasn't been done quickly. And secondly, it doesn't look like it's been worked through, but then the first time they took winter fuel away, it wasn't worked through either.
Right.
So, you know, I'm glad that it has been restored because there are a lot of people who really could not afford it and were right on the cusp of whether you got something or you didn't get something. Well, now they've got that back. So there'll be quite a big sigh of relief. But I think this has become sort of totemic of the way this government cannot seem to operate correctly, hasn't got the right sort of management capabilities, and is it doesn't make the decisions from a sort of clear look at the issues. It tends to do sort of emotional jumps at things, and it's a pity, great pity for the country.
It is a great pity for the country, and still nobody really knows where the money's coming from. But, you know, that's another story.
No, that's another story. And when you think that the government spends about £1 trillion, that's a huge sum of money. Now, 1 billion in a trillion is a very small percentage. So, you know, I wondered why they did this in the first instance. But self-evidently, there's been not just this, but a whole series of promises over the last couple of weeks or so. And no doubt some more will come when Rachel Reeves gets on her feet with the spending review. So it's going to be more than where do you get this 1 billion or so from. There's a lot more in there as well to find.
Yes, indeed. Meanwhile, they've found 14 billion to expand nuclear, according to Ed Miliband, who's out and about this morning. He's going to be committing 14.2 billion to building 2 giant reactors at Sizewell in Suffolk. They're going to be called Sizewell C. A lot of people saying, well, this work already started under the last government, didn't it?
Yes, it did. And I suspect that this money doesn't include things like, you know, the clearings of the site and the new roads and the rail links and all those sorts of things that go into it. I mean, the site was approved, the project was approved under the last government. So there is a question mark about what is different now. He'll say he's got the money, but 14 billion, when you think about how much it's cost to build Hinckley, the new one there, and as I say, there'll be a whole load of other expenditure around the side which won't be included in that 14 billion. I suspect that's not only an undercook of the actual cost of this project, but also to say that somehow you're going to get it done in 10 years. Well, you know, we'll wait and see. These things always take longer. I mean, Hinckley's I don't know how many years overdue now, but 10, 12 years overdue, cost doubled. You know, these are big projects, and if you're going to go ahead with them, and this one, after all, as I say, you know, it's been approved before, I think that not making promises about price and timing is probably a more appropriate way of being clear with the public exactly what something like this is going to cost.
Yes, exactly right. Well, Ed Miliband, as I say, has been out and about talking to various people this morning about it. He won't come and talk to us. I don't know why. He doesn't like me, I suppose. But have a listen to what he has to say.
Making long-term decisions, John, for the future of the country. And I think that's what people elected us to do.
And that's what Sizewell C is about. Also just announced small modular reactors, so smaller nuclear power stations to be built by Rolls-Royce, a British company that's won the competition. This is really important. It's important for our long-term energy security. It's important for jobs. 10,000 jobs being created as a result of us giving the green light to Sizewell C. 1,500 apprenticeships. I spoke to one of those apprentices last night who's already on site there. She was buzzing about the opportunity that Sizewell C is giving her. So, and it is also, by the way, about tackling the climate crisis and getting us off insecure, expensive and volatile fossil fuels. So I think this shows a government willing to make long-term decisions for the country, but also willing to invest, as I was saying earlier, for the future of Britain.
Yes. They've got a funny way of using the word invest, haven't they, the Labour government? They like to think of investment as something that they do rather than somebody else doing it, with our money.
They always put the word spend to one side and use invest instead. But an interesting couple of points in there. I mean, firstly, is this announcement on the small-scale nuclear reactors and with Rolls-Royce. That is a good decision. Thank goodness. Get on with it, is my view, because that is the sort of easy to build, quick to build power that we need. And what's more, you don't need the government money for it. I expect you will on the first one, because that will be our demo model, if you like, here in the UK, though there are some already just about up and running in other countries. But the reality is that it can be funded properly out of some of the big investment funds, because you can build them quickly and because they give a good return and because they are reasonably priced, something of the order of a couple of billion as opposed to 14.5 billion.
Yes. Isn't this also something that Rishi Sunak announced, though? Because I seem to remember he announced that Rolls-Royce were involved in building these little mini nuclears. So what's new?
He said that there was a competition, and so they finally decided to go with Rolls-Royce.
Right.
I can't tell you why there should have been a competition in the first instance. But I think they also need to give their regulators a kick, because so far the design has not been, fully gone through all its regulatory processes. But, if we do want to have strong, what shall I say? If we want to have power in this country where we have control, where we're not at the beck and call of either international fuel prices or indeed of the variability of renewables, then it is, and we want it low carbon, then it is the small-scale nuclear reactors which will get there. I know that Ed Miliband always says, oh, well, the volatility and the high price, all that sort of thing of fossil fuels. It doesn't have to be like that. But the reality is that wind and sun are variable, they're expensive, and you've got to have that reliable power available in this country. And if we're going to do it in a low-carbon way, it's small-scale nuclear reactors, and we'll get them up and running a long time, I suspect, before that big announcement of Sizewell is switched on.
Yes, well, we'll keep an eye on it and see whether we can look forward to any cheaper electricity as a result. He hasn't mentioned how much that's going to be, but we'll come back to it. Thank you very much indeed. Angela Knight there, former CEO of Energy UK. Alan in Middlesbrough says, great news, your mate Dale Vince, the net zero grifter, will be annoyed today given his investment in nuclear announced this morning. Note how Miliband calls it decarbonisation here, not a net zero target. And Mitch says from sunny Durham, none of Labour's policies have been worked through. They are a disaster for this country. Great show as always. And Stephen Kimberley in Notts says, good morning, Mike. Nuclear power is the way forward. So why are they closing both Heysham 1 and 2 nuclear power stations on the Lancashire coast in 2027 and 2030 respectively? Well, I don't know. It's a good question, though. Of course, if Ed Miliband was here, I'd ask him. But he won't come on the show, unfortunately. Doesn't like the idea of it. Just doesn't fancy it. Just apparently he's frightened. I don't know why he'd be frightened. I'm only going to ask him a few straight questions that he presumably would be able to answer, wouldn't he? 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory.
You can see that he's wearing a black belt around his waist. That is a waistband that is used to restrain troublesome deportees. So when the staff, the Home Office contractors who accompany foreign criminals on those deportation flights think that somebody they're escorting is going to cause trouble, they put one of these restraining waistbands on him.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:51. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. It is the home of common sense, of course. Keith in Shrewsbury says this. Hi, Mike. Great show. With regards to kids on smartphones, etc., when you go out for a meal now, all you see are tiny kids sitting at the dinner table watching Peppa Pig on their iPads, generally being ignored by the parents. It's lazy parenting, and surely it must have a detrimental effect for personal development, especially when it comes to social interaction. Well, I'm sure it does. And one from Andy in Morecambe. It says, morning, Mike. Will Marks and Spencer still use Dawn French to do their Christmas advertising with their founders being Jewish? Well, it's a good question. I wonder if they will quietly let her slip away. And I wonder whether that was one of the reasons that she actually decided that she should apologise, even though the apology was really pretty insincere. A bit more breaking news for you this morning. Greta Thunberg has been deported by Israel after she was detained yesterday. The Freedom Flotilla was seized. She refused to watch horrifying October the 7th video, it says here. She just wouldn't do it. And why would you do that? Why would you not want to watch that? I mean, that tells you something about the mindset of these people, doesn't it? She's being deported after being arrested, effectively, and taken to dry land. Israel's foreign ministry shared a photo of Thunberg on a plane, saying she was headed to France. I don't know if we've got that, but if you have seen it, if you haven't seen it, we'll put it up shortly. She's sitting looking pretty nonplussed and pretty arrogant. That's a picture of her when she was taken off the boat yesterday. She's now on a plane to France. No doubt she'll get herself on a dinghy and come in to Dover sometime in the next couple of days. But apparently some of the other people who were also taken, among the 12 activists, have said that they don't agree to being deported, so they're going to have some kind of court case, and they're being continually held in detention. What a bunch of planks, really. I mean, haven't you got anything better to do? Let's talk now, though, to Mal Fletcher, who's an AI expert, because, of course, yesterday we heard all about Keir Starmer's love of AI. He thinks it's going to be so transformative for the country. Just before that, though, let's listen to what Ed Miliband had to say this morning about winter fuel and the U-turn.
Why won't the Chancellor, why won't you this morning just apologise? Dead simple.
Because the Chancellor, and I think she's right about this, is not going to apologise for a series of measures she took to stabilise the nation's finances when we came into office. She was confronted with a situation of a huge black hole in the nation's finances. The thing that would hurt pensioners and others hugely is the economy going off a cliff. She took a whole series of measures to stabilise the nation's finances. Now, as I say, a couple of things have happened since then. She has taken those decisions to stabilise the finances. She's got more room for manoeuvre, and she's heard the strength of feeling. And I think that that's why she's made the change she has. And I've been on lots of doorsteps where people have raised the winter fuel allowance a lot. The people I've spoken to haven't said, we want you to apologise. They've said, we want you to change the policy, and that's what we've done.
Really? So people don't ask you to apologise. No, you're supposed to just voluntarily apologise. You don't go around asking for people to say, would you mind apologising for what you just did? You would generally apologise for what you just did if it was wrong. Simple rules, really. Let's talk to Mal Fletcher. Mal, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Good to be with you.
Good to see you. Keir Starmer seems to think AI is the answer to everything. It's not, is it?
Not really, no. Human beings are the main thing, and AI should be a servant thereof. But I'm not sure, for all of my desire to see AI work, I'm not sure courting AI innovation is as straightforward as Mr. Starmer said yesterday. For one thing, if government gets too cosy with advanced tech and the companies that develop it, it might lead us into some tricky territory. Government might start trusting the developers of AI to regulate themselves. If government's out there doing the schmoozing, the tech companies might be left to create their own regulations.
Right.
And we know from experience that doesn't work.
No, indeed. And the two things we do know about AI, one of them was said by Peter Kyle, who's the actual, science and technology minister on Sunday, is that, some parts of AI are not very reliable because some of the information it gives out is wrong. And that may change over time, but at the moment that's certainly true. And secondly, any AI sort of data systems and data banks, if you like, are going to use an awful lot of electricity, and that'll bring our man Ed Miliband into the scene again.
Yeah, well, the power issue is one that's not going to go away whether politics likes it or not. We haven't really addressed that at all, and we need to do it very urgently. But there's also that other issue of the reliability of AI and the bias that's within AI, which you've suggested. Numerous studies have shown that AI systems can adopt the conscious or unconscious biases of their human trainers, for example, along racial lines or gender lines. And the training data itself can be biased if certain people groups are underrepresented. So in areas like medicine, for example, that could mean that we have skewed patient data sets leading to unequal treatment recommendations. It wasn't long ago, you'll remember, that COVID-19 triage models were found to give lower priority to certain demographics due to biased data. Those people just weren't being covered by the data. So we need to be very cautious and not just throw money around at the problem.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunately what governments mostly do, isn't it? Just throw money at something and go, that'll fix it, that'll be great. But it absolutely won't. I mean, in terms of the strength and the power, I suppose, of some of these AI companies as well, it's quite difficult to rein them in, isn't it? Because, what we hear is that if the AI company that was going to base itself here for whatever reason suddenly doesn't like what the government's saying, they'll just move somewhere else, won't they?
Yes, they possibly will, and we may lose out in the short term. In the long term, I think protecting humanity is the most important thing.
Yes.
And what could happen if we spend all our time schmoozing the AI developers is that what regulating the government does do might be thrown together without any consideration to the ethics that should underpin it. We are going to need tight regulation to protect us from data bias in AI, from having our private data become the focus of technology creep or cyber attacks. But regulation only works when it's informed by an ethical framework, and without sound ethics, regulations just don't stand the test of time. I think, Mike, we need debates on AI from a broad range of disciplines, much broader than politicos and tech people. We need educators, engineers, physicists, healthcare people, philosophers, probably even theologians, people who can contribute to what really is the biggest question of our time with AI, and that's this: what does it mean to be human? What marks us out as being different from our machines, and how do we protect that?
Right, and how do we stop these machines from sort of copying everything over into some kind of artificial world where, the real world disappears?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, copyright, as you know, is a big issue with AI right now, and there's the issue of technology creep that comes into that. Once government starts handing over access to data in, say, healthcare, there's no guarantee that lines won't be blurred so that other data is also included in that. So a tech that was introduced for one limited purpose can easily be stretched behind the scenes to serve other purposes, which the public haven't sanctioned and probably doesn't even know about.
No, of course. Fascinating. Well, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. We'll keep talking, I'm sure, over the course of time. Mal Fletcher, AI expert there. Coming up in the next hour, Andrew Griffith MP is going to join us. Nick Timothy MP is here as well. They've got lots to say about what's going on in terms of freedom of speech, also in terms of what this government is U-turning on and what they're likely to U-turn on next. Liam Halligan's also here to talk about Rachel Reeves and her spending and what she's going to do coming up this week. And Kinsey Schofield's in the studio talking about the Royals. It's all happening right here on Talk.
How much, ladies and gentlemen, are fish and chips where you come from? We'll go to Jason in Crewe.
Jason from Crewe.
Fish, chips and peas, £7.50. It's the best chippy in England.
Janice in Leeds, go.
Regarding fish and chips in Leeds, it's between £9.50 and £12.75.
Whitby, how much is fish and chips?
3 of us, fish, chips, peas, I think one of us curry sauce, 3 cans of pop, just short of 70 quid.
£70? That's 23 quid a head, man. Even my maths does that. Very quickly, a voice note. Campbell in Scotland, go.
Up here in Banff in the northeast of Scotland, we can get a fillet and a half of haddock with a regular chips for £8 and 10 pence, and it's by far and away one of the best chippies I've ever had.
Kenneth in Surrey, fish and chips, go.
Fish and chips in Ascot, about half a mile from where you used to live, will cost you £12.60. Great show. Keep up the good work.
That's why I moved, because you were living there. When was the last time you had fish and chips?
Couple of weeks ago.
How much? Where'd you get it from?
I think it was about 40 quid. It was it was in the Ivy.
Honestly, you really are. For any of you who think he's a man of the people, I nearly said you're
Keeping it real.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 9. I'm Mike Graham, and this, of course, is the home of common sense. We've got lots to talk about this morning. We've got a voice note, first of all, from Richard on Greta Thunberg, because she is back on a plane heading back to France, out of Israel, having been deported.
Hello, Mike. Richard from Crowborough here. Yes, I mentioned yesterday that I was unable to answer Greta Thunberg's call to put pressure on the Swedish government for her release because I was filling my fountain pen that day. Today I'm washing my cat, so I'm afraid I can't step in today either. But please pass on my best wishes to her. All the best. Great show, as always. Bye.
Richard, I'm sure she'd be very grateful. Apparently she refused to watch Hamas videos, which were going to be shown to her by the Israeli government and the Israeli security forces from October the 7th, and instead she opted to be transported away from Israel, deported, in fact, on a plane. So off she goes to France, hopefully never to be seen again. But you know what's going to happen. Maybe she will turn up like the proverbial bad penny. We're talking this morning about Rachel Reeves and her failure to apologise for making a complete reversal on the winter fuel allowance that she took away from all pensioners, or nearly all pensioners, back end of last year. And instead, she's decided now to give it all back to them, even though some of them will have to give some of it back to her. It's a complete shambles. Humiliation is what it's called on the front page of the Daily Mail. We'll be talking to Andrew Griffith MP, the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. Ed Miliband's out there doing the rounds, saying they're going to spend £14 billion on Sizewell C, a nuclear plant, which of course was announced earlier on by the last government, the Tory government, who said they were going to do that. And they were also going to give Rolls-Royce a contract to build some small nuclear facilities as well. All of this has been seen before. It's nothing new under the sun, is there? Breaking news as well. Marks & Spencer says they've reopened their website to customers after being forced to halt internet orders in April following that damaging cyber attacks. We'll take more of your calls, of course. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Rachel Reeves all over the news this morning because this is her big week. Tomorrow is the spending review, and she hasn't really got any money, but she's claiming they've fixed the foundations of the economy. Have they really? I don't think so. It's 5 minutes past 9. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Mike, I'm furious, says Jackie from Derbyshire. The Energy Secretary feels he can choose which media he appears on. All talk viewers and listeners need to write to him at the House of Commons to ask him why he feels that's acceptable. He's right in one respect, though. The countryside and our way of life are under threat from solar panels and mass immigration. Absolutely right. Let's talk to Andrew Griffith, MP, Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. Andrew, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Always good to be here on the home of common sense.
Yes, absolutely right. Not much common sense from the Labour government, I'm afraid, this morning. You know, they seem to have decided that that great idea they had last year wasn't such a great idea after all. And now they've decided that they're going to give all the money back that they took off the pensioners. What's going on?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, they didn't need to do this. It wasn't in their manifesto. They didn't do it as part of a budget round. Instead, Rachel Reeves woke up one morning and decided to pick a fight with the nation's pensioners, exposing them to a cold, bleak winter. And now we've seen the inevitable U-turn, first, I suspect, of many from this government. She should apologise. And most importantly, she needs to say how she is going to fund. We were told by Lucy Powell that if they hadn't made this decision, there was going to be a run on the pound, all sorts of nonsense. But she did not yesterday say that how she's going to pay for it. What does that mean? It means your listeners and viewers know that taxes are going to go up. This autumn, she's going to come back for more of your money, your savings, your wages and your pension.
Yeah, and I mean, apart from the kind of obvious confusion of it all, they've chosen what looks like a very complicated method of reinstating it, don't they? I mean, they're going to basically give it back to everyone, but if you've got over £35,000 of income, you sort of send it back to them.
Yeah, exactly, and it's one of the reasons, and it isn't the biggest amount of money either in terms of the national finances. So it's one of the reasons why we would not have made this change. We, obviously always look out for taxpayers, but if you want to reform welfare, this is a very, very bad place to start. Much better to get people back into work. We've seen today that unemployment is going up. That's a direct result of this government's stewardship of the economy, their jobs tax, the attack through the unemployment bill that they're trying to push through Parliament at the moment. So they didn't need to do this. They should not have done it. Rachel Reeves herself was skulking away yesterday. She should have come to Parliament, and Rachel Reeves should be apologising, ideally before Keir Starmer finds her next replacement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's have a look at Rachel Reeves being asked if she would apologise, and let's see what her answer is.
The picture was on low incomes who went through unnecessary anxiety and hardship this winter because of border situation.
Well, the irresponsible thing to have done last year was to allow the public finances to carry on an unsustainable footing. That would have resulted in interest rates going up, costing families and pensioners more in mortgages and rents. I said that I would return stability to the economy. We've done that, which is enabling us this year to lift the level of the means test so that more than 3/4 of pensioners will receive...
No apology for it.
I'm always going to put stability in our economy first. We were also able this year to increase the triple lot and also put record funding into our National Health Service, and we'll continue to do that. But because of the decisions we've made as a government, we are now able to lift that means test level so that this year more than 3 in 4 pensioners will receive the winter fuel payments.
Now, she says there that they've stabilised the economy and they've improved the economy. As you say, unemployment's up, average regular earnings are down, growth is going nowhere. How have they improved the economy exactly?
Yeah, I mean, look, mortuaries are pretty stable places, but you wouldn't want to live in one. The reality is that the government is slowing down the economy. It's pushed up interest rates, so people's mortgages are higher than they would otherwise have been. We've seen today, very sadly, over 100,000 fewer people on payroll over the last year. I think unemployment is going to be one of the absolute markers of this government. Every Labour government increases unemployment, and this is looking like it will be no exception. And no one forced Rachel Reeves to make that choice. She announced that the same day she put $9 billion into pay rises for unreformed public sector workers. This was not a choice that was forced on her. It didn't do anything to stabilise the economy. The fact that that was a lie is revealed by the fact she's reversing it now at a time the economy is in worse shape. Look, you know, everyone just needs to be sensible about the economy, and she's made some really, really bad decisions. Never easy. There is too much debt in our economy. It's one reason why we're not spending enough on defence, because we're spending too much on interest. But every day she takes the country into the wrong direction rather than fixing some of those problems.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the problem all round, doesn't it? Because there simply isn't enough money. I mean, if NATO get what they want, which is a 5% GDP contribution from the UK's budget, you know, that's going to be, you know, close to 150, maybe 170 billion pounds a year. She's talking about saving £1 billion by cutting the winter fuel allowance, which is now presumably now come back to the Exchequer. You know, but at the end of the day, the amounts of money that have been borrowed since Labour got in are surely crippling our economy as well, aren't they?
Correct. I mean, she's going to announce tomorrow 300 billion of spending envelope over and above what was in the previous plan. We cannot afford that. And the answer to this is not for politicians to rearrange the deck chairs on the Titanic. It's to make some properly tough decisions, to take a chainsaw to large parts of government, to the regulators that hold everything in this country back, to look again at our legal system so we get more growth, get rid of the blockers, get rid of some of the lawyers that slow everything down, and get an economy that's properly growing, more people back into work, and then we can be a prosperous nation again. Sadly, we are falling down the league tables.
Yeah, good to talk to you. Andrew Griffith, thank you very much indeed, MP and Shadow Business and Trade Secretary, of course, as well. Stuart says this on the subject of Greta Thunberg, who has just been deported from Israel back to France. I'm sure Greta's mummy and daddy told her to stop being silly and get on a plane and get the hell out of there. Well, that would be good, wouldn't it? Morning, Mike. I hope Greta's plane is wind-powered, says Jeremy in West Sussex. And Keith in Gran Canaria says, landed in Las Palmas last night, no delay off the plane, passed through passport control in 15 minutes. On our way to a happy place. Great show, keep up the good work. Yeah, well, once again, I think you'll find that this shibboleth about e-gates and about how difficult it is to fly in and out of European countries. I've never found it particularly difficult to fly in and out of European countries at all. And on the subject of whether kids are using too many devices to be kept busy, Darryl says this, morning, Mike, my son is autistic and the only way he will settle and eat his dinner is by calming him down with his tablet and watching Peppa Pig. So those who class it as lazy parenting need to stop being Karens and get their facts straight before tarring everyone with the same brush. Love the show, though. Keep up the good work. One from Nick Freeman, who's tweeted today on the subject of Greta being kicked out of Israel. He says, fascinating to see how Israel deals with illegal immigrants compared to our government. Hours, days versus years, if ever. I wonder if there's a lesson here. Well, yeah, if you can put somebody straight on a plane, why wouldn't you do it? Absolutely right. We've got so much to talk about between now and 10 o'clock. Let's have a look at Keir Starmer. Couple of things I want to show you. One, he says he's investing in the future. This is a video that they've actually put out on the Downing Street account. Nobody can be quite sure what he's doing. He's wandering around in Chequers. Take a look at this. He's walking around, right? He's walking into a room, he's sitting down, he's signing a piece of paper. He's obviously trying to look presidential. He hands the book to somebody. There's no noise. There's no accompanying sort of, you know, description of what's happening. It's just bizarre. And here's the sort of the music video of the day. And this is from the man, by the way, who thinks that the greatest band ever to come out of Manchester is Take That. Right? He put out a tweet yesterday congratulating Manchester for getting the Brit Awards. He's given Take That, Joy Division and New Order as the three bands that he thinks are worth mentioning coming out of Manchester. No mention of the Stone Roses, no mention of the Buzzcocks, no mention indeed of Oasis. Or Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, or any number of other things that he could have mentioned. Even the Bee Gees came from Manchester. Let's have a look at his teleprompter fail. This is when he spoke at Tech Week yesterday, right? He wanted to try and say something really, really, really important, but unfortunately the teleprompter broke down, so he had to riff it, and he didn't do it very well. Check this out.
So let me start by thanking you all for being here. We're going to have a really good tech week. We've already kicked off yesterday. We've got some major announcements to make, some real partnership to do together, and I'm just so pleased to have this opportunity, this privilege of opening this morning. A real pleasure for me. And my constituency, the area I represent, is London. I'm a London MP, and that means that I understand firsthand just how important it is for our sector as we go forward. And, you know, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's the spirit in London, as we go forward, this is hugely, hugely important.
Yeah, I don't really know what he's talking about. If you do, please do send us a voice note to 0344 499 1000. He's talking gibberish, isn't he? Because he was just sort of randomly selecting words that were coming into his head and putting them into a sentence. That's what it seemed like to me. Greta Thunberg should be brought into Starmer's awful government, says Peter. She's as delusional as they are and would fit perfectly alongside that bunch of amateurs. Yeah, she probably would, actually. I mean, some of them probably agree with her on quite a lot of things, too. Let's talk to Nick Timothy MP, Conservative MP for West Suffolk, because he, after, you might remember, the Blasphemy case last week of the Turkish man who was found guilty of burning a Quran, Nick is going to bring in a 10-minute rule bill, I believe, in Parliament today after the case happened, because he wants to safeguard free speech in this country. Nick, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks very much for joining us. You said at the time that this was a gross misuse of the legal system and certainly a blasphemy rule by the back door. What are you doing today? Tell us what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. So Parliament's actually abolished blasphemy laws years and years ago, and there haven't been any blasphemy laws prosecuted in Britain for decades. But what's happening is sections 4 and 5 of the Public Order Act are increasingly being used by the authorities to prosecute people who insult Islam and cause offence to Muslims. And I think that's wrong. I don't think that's what Parliament ever intended. I don't think it's what the public want. So today I'm introducing a bill that will restore our free speech by taking one section of the Public Order Act, which only applies to Part 3 of the legislation, and applies it to the whole Act and to some other legislation to make absolutely clear that nothing in this legislation should in any way prohibit any expression of opinion or criticism or mockery or whatever of a religion.
And would that effectively prevent then, if you like, the police from bringing charges like this again?
Yes, it would, because, as I say, the police have used sections 4 and 5 of the Public Order Act, and this would say very clearly that sections 4 and 5 do not apply in any way to anybody criticising or mocking or even insulting a religion or religious beliefs.
Right. And what likelihood is it that it will be successful? And if so, how soon will it be in force?
Well, I'm afraid that's up to the government. I'm a Conservative MP and there are only 121 of us these days. But I will introduce it today. If a government MP shouts no, then we may end up having a vote on it, and we'll see how Labour MPs vote in that way. But if that doesn't happen, then it will proceed to a Friday later in the year, where it will be considered along with other private members' bills.
Right. So it could be a while before it's actually taken seriously. It's a shame, because one of the things I found extraordinary about that particular case was the fact that the judge justified the fact that what the burning of the Quran meant and why it was so offensive was because of the reaction of two people who didn't like it, which seems to me to be putting the cart before the horse, doesn't it? I mean, why would a judge say that's offensive because somebody over there didn't like it?
Well, that's exactly what's so perverse about using the Public Order Act as a de facto blasphemy law, because it basically holds the protester, the person saying the words, responsible for the likely violent reaction of others who are offended by criticism of their beliefs. That's totally wrong-headed. In any other context, we'd say that was victim blaming, and we would say it was wrong.
Yeah.
And to be frank, that means that this kind of behaviour will only be deemed criminal by the police and by prosecutors and the courts if they are criticising a religion where people have reason to believe that the adherents of that religion will react violently.
Yeah.
And we know from history, from in this country, I think 1988 onwards, with the publication of the Satanic Verses, we know that that's tended to be Islam. So what we're really talking about is a de facto blasphemy law for one religion alone, and as I say, I think that's wrong.
Indeed, because somebody said, I think at the time, if this was to be the case and the judge's logic was to be followed, then you would have locked up Salman Rushdie for writing the Satanic Verses, wouldn't you?
Well, it's arguable, right? And right now, I don't know, standing here being interviewed by you in public with people passing by, I don't know if I give an honest view of something I think about any particular religion, whether the law deems that to be criminal or not, because of the way that the Public Order Act is now being used. So we do need clarity. And to be honest, I think it's actually quite clear-cut. We should be able to say what we think about ideas.
Yeah.
It's backward to suggest that that should be criminal.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Nick, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Nick Timothy MP, Conservative for West Suffolk there, bringing a very important 10-minute rule coming in, 10-minute bill coming in, because basically he doesn't think that the blasphemy law by the back door is what we should be promoting here in this country, and I think many of us would agree with him. Chris in Croydon says, Mike, what's actually happened with the winter fuel allowance is that they've encouraged loads of people who didn't claim pension credit before to claim it. So with the winter fuel allowance being given back, they have in a weird way made it even more expensive for themselves. Well, exactly right. I mean, that is the problem with this Labour government. They don't really know what they're doing. The fact that there is a winter fuel allowance at all shows how derisory our state pension in this country actually is, one of the lowest in Europe, says John in Long Lawford. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, we're going to talk to Liam Halligan, columnist at The Telegraph, of course, a man that knows a thing or two about money and whether Rachel Reeves has got any. We'll find out next.
You can see that he's wearing a black belt around his waist. That is a waistband that is used to restrain troublesome deportees. So when the staff, the Home Office contractors who accompany foreign criminals on those deportation flights think that somebody they're escorting is going to cause trouble, they put one of these restraining waistbands on him.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:25. This is the home of common sense. Debbie says, Starmer rambling on about London. He doesn't know the rest of the country exists. And Jeff in EC1 says, the spirit in London, what on earth? Sounds like Starmer's been on a Whitechapel ghost tour. Well, indeed. Liam Halligan's here. We'll talk to him in 1 second. First, Andy on Ed Miliband.
Oh, Mike, listening to Ed Miliband there, I mean, is it a prerequisite for all of these Labour MPs in government to have really wet, drab, annoying, pathetic, little unconvincing voices? I mean, you listen to Donald Trump when he speaks with conviction, you know, he knows what he's saying, you take him seriously, you know he means business, and these clowns just haven't got a clue. Oh, they're so annoying, Mike. Anyway, cheers, mate. Andy in Portsmouth.
Andy in Portsmouth, thank you. They are very, very annoying. I'll tell you who's not annoying. Liam Halligan's here. Liam, very good morning to you.
It's a low bar, Mike. It's a low bar.
Listen, I've just been reading your rather astonishing trip in Italy. I'll have to read in more detail. Sounds like a great idea.
The economy's so difficult to get your head around. I'm trying to reinvent myself as some kind of travel writer.
Good idea. Well, anywhere but here.
Portillo phase, you know.
I mean, anywhere but here, Liam, I think.
Journeys.
Yeah, because so many people are leaving the country and they're trying to find any excuse to get out. I mean, this situation coming up tomorrow, you know, Rachel Reeves and her financial kind of mission, it's doomed to failure before it starts, isn't it? I mean, even Dan Hodges is saying she's lost all credibility. She just doesn't have any anymore.
Well, the idea that you're going to make some welfare savings, or at least try and slow down the rate of increase of welfare spending, and then before the policy is even implemented, your own Prime Minister then forces you to largely reverse those cost control measures. It doesn't really breed confidence, does it?
No.
And the UK's investors, investors around the world who actually lend the government money, there's increasing alarm out there, Mike. I mean, I go on about it all the time, but that's because I'm right. The 10-year gilt yield, the 30-year gilt yield, what it costs the UK government to borrow, has been going up a lot over recent months, even though the Bank of England itself has been trying to keep interest rates low. That's why we're spending more on debt interest, Mike, than we are on schools. That's why we're spending almost twice what we spend on defence on debt interest. And Rachel Reeves clearly is today going to reheat some announcements and make other spending commitments based on more taxation and more borrowing to keep the left of her own party happy, so she isn't outmaneuvered by Red Ange and everyone else who wants to be the Labour leader after Keir Starmer, driven entirely by the ideology. And yet the more she raises taxes, the more Labour increases red tape and regulation on the small and medium-sized firms that, you know, make this economy work, that actually keep the wheels moving. The less employment we're going to have, the less growth we're going to have, the less tax revenue we're going to have despite higher tax rates, and the closer Labour are going to come to driving this fantastic country of ours, this fundamentally dynamic economy it could be, off a cliff edge.
Yeah. And do you think they're desperate to keep the interest rates down? Because one of the things they keep mentioning is that they've kept interest rates low, and they've had 4, drops since they've been in. It's almost as though that's the last bastion that they can hang on to of anything, because we've got unemployment going up. We've got, wages actually going down now today. Regular earnings are decreasing to 5.2%. The inflation figure is about the only thing they can say is good, isn't it?
Well, the inflation figure, of course, has gone up sharply. It's 3.5% now, up from 2.6% the month before. That's from March to April. Yeah. It's getting on for double the Bank of England's 2% annual target. And, Labour is full of statist people who have only ever been employed by the public sector. There's almost no one in Downing Street. If there was, I would know them, and they would be calling me all the time. Who actually understands financial markets. And even though the Bank of England, as I say, has been lowering interest rates, as talkTV listeners and viewers know, because they're a pretty financially sophisticated bunch, it's not just these kind of bureaucratic imposed interest rates from the Bank of England that count. What really counts is the actual rate of interest you have to pay in the real world, in the market. Not some diktat by a bunch of economists sitting in a room. And in the real world, in financial markets, interest rates have been going up a lot.
Well, that's right. I mean, everybody. I mean, we did this.
Months, as I've been pointing out,
Yeah.
and that itself is a sign of systemic danger, of unrest, of a lack of financial grip.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, and I did this as an exercise a few weeks back, you know, when they were saying that they were holding interest rates relatively low. This is before it jumped up to 3.5. And it was going, and people were going, you know, I go into the supermarket to buy things that used to be £1, they now cost £2.30. You know, there's nothing like 3%. It's 10%, it's 20%, it's 50% in some instances. I've got this text, right, from Bill, who says, can someone please tell me exactly how the economy is stable? My work is drying up. I've lost count how many people I know who have been put on reduced hours because of the national insurance increase. The list just goes on and on. At least the last lot was starting to turn the corner. Labour are taking 100 steps back. He's right, isn't he?
You know, I love this country, and I'm you know, from a background, small businesses, people getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning, go-getting, striving, trying to make something of themselves and help their families, not people that just take money from the state. And so I am a broadly optimistic person, and yet I can't help but keep pointing out these terrible numbers, because very few people in the mainstream broadcast media actually show any interest in this stuff. And yet, you know, as Bill has just illustrated, regular punters out there, they're living and breathing this and wondering why the media is so kind of sanguine about what's actually happening. Employment numbers out this morning, Mike, pretty much every single month since last July, employment in this country has fallen sharply. That's because Labour are making it increasingly difficult to actually employ people. And that's before this mad employment bill that's currently in the Lords actually hits the statute book. The one that gives you, you know, unfair dismissal rights and maternity leave from day one. Literally from day one. The one that's going to mean that lots and lots of employees are going to be, you know, contributing to Labour Party coffers, whether they know it or not. This is a major problem, and I do think there's a real disconnect now. You know, back in the day when I started out in journalism, there were tremendous economic commentators from across the political spectrum really thrashing this stuff out. Now there's very little sort of economic understanding among the mainstream media, particularly, if I may say so, with some honourable exceptions, Mike, including yourself, among the big broadcasters. And yet regular punters are screaming for understanding and knowledge and reflection in their media of what they know is actually happening. Because them and their mates have got reduced hours, because them and their mates are going to supermarkets, and you know, you go in for a few bits and pieces and you've dropped 100 quid. Right?
Absolutely.
And years ago that was your weekly shop.
Oh, I know. Incredible.
This is the reality. And ahead of tomorrow's spending review, Labour keeps saying we fixed the foundations and Tory black holes.
It's all rubbish.
But actually the numbers don't point to that. And the more you talk nonsense, the more you deny the reality in front of your face, the less credibility you have. And when you're trying to run a big economy that's highly indebted, that's subject to lots and lots of financial and global competitive pressures, credibility is what it's all about. And this government, with the best will in the world, I wanted Labour to do well. I wanted a decent British government opposing, you know, the Tories left us with a 70-year high tax burden. Crikey. I wanted Labour to do well. And yet this is not 1997. These guys are not Tony Blair. You know, this is the most ideologically left-wing Labour government we've had since the 1970s, Mike. And as I say, ahead of this spending review, when Rachel Reeves will be throwing around promises and borrowing commitments like confetti to try and save her own political skin, there is no one in the room with a serious professional understanding of financial markets. That is my concern.
Yeah, it's quite frightening. Great to talk to you, Liam. Let's do it some more. Liam Halligan, Telegraph columnist there, with some grim outlooks for everybody, because he talks the common sense talk. He knows what people are going through, because you can see it in the numbers. But why does nobody else talk about it? Why is it down to us? You know, back in over in some of the other broadcasters, you know, some of the stuff they do is completely and utterly unbelievable. You know, one of them's doing a podcast now about what happens if Russia invades Britain. Well, I'll tell you what, there wouldn't be much left of it by the time they got here, because you can't afford to buy anything. The housing market's starting to slump. We've got inflation rampantly rising every single month. We've got unemployment rising every single month. No growth, and complete and utter spendthrifts in government with no money to invest in anything. Brilliant. Well played. There's only one thing for it. We'll have to cheer ourselves up with Kinsey Schofield. She's coming next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It is 9:37, and it is time, I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, for a very special guest. It is Kinsey Schofield, the one and only from the United States of America. Looks like a good time not to be in LA, actually.
I made my escape.
Yeah.
I'm here safely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your piece.
It does look quite bad. So, I mean, I know some people are sort of playing it down saying it's only in a small part of the city, but, I mean, it's quite hardcore looking, isn't it? I mean, they like a riot in LA, don't they?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they used to riot. I remember when I lived in downtown LA, like one of the sports teams won.
Right.
And they set the city on fire, and our apartment complex locked us all in.
Wow.
And so, no, you're right. LA knows how to riot. But this just all plays into what the president has said about Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass, the mayor, that they are ill-equipped to do their jobs, that we can't trust them. This scene is exactly what he's been describing over the last few years. Gavin Newscum is what he calls him sometimes. So Gavin can threaten to sue him all he wants. At the end of the day, Trump has already painted this picture a long time ago.
And he's the president. You know, the idea that Gavin Newsom says, well, you didn't have the right to reach into my city and send in the National Guard. Well, actually, it looks like he was right to do that.
Yeah.
You know, when people are standing on top of burning cars holding a giant Mexican flag, looking incredibly menacing, I think, you know, the time has come to say maybe these guys shouldn't actually be in America.
Well, and our officers are afraid to police, and we don't have enough because they're afraid to police. You know, they did the riots for George Floyd, defund the police. They did. Once they got the funding back, no one showed up for the job because they were so. First of all, they won't allow you to do the job if you rob a store for $899. Like
that's not a crime, right?
That's not a crime. fine.
Right.
And so when cops aren't allowed to do their job, or they're afraid of being accused of something far worse when trying to do their job, why would they show up? So it is a difficult, we're not tough enough on crime, and it's on full display here.
Yeah, it really is quite shocking. Anyway, so here you are. You're in London. You come here on a fairly regular basis, so I'm not going to say what brings you here. But
Trooping the colour. I'm excited to celebrate the king.
Yeah, and it's going to be quite a nice week, I think. I mean, last weekend was a bit wet and dank and damp and horrible, but, I think it's going to be good this week.
Well, I hope so, too, because I did not bring damp clothing.
Did you not? No. That was very unwise. Well, you can always buy some,
That's true.
Let's talk about the dreaded pair from Montecito, Meghan and Harry.
My neighbours.
Your neighbours, yeah. I mean, apparently they've been to Disneyland recently. She's going to add hotels and restaurants to her brand. What's this all about?
I think there's no better way to try to bury a tacky twerking video than the wholesome image that is Disneyland, right? Because now you're taking all of you're distracting from all the headlines about how low can you go.
Yeah.
With look at how cute Lily's birthday cake is. So I do think that what we're seeing is Meghan trying to change public perception with the children by using the children and pushing this mom of the
children who she never wanted to use for publicity, obviously.
Obviously not. No.
So that's changed.
We're not allowed to see them, but for some reason she's still posting them on the internet, which I think I'd love to talk to a psychologist about how if you're a weirdo that is curious, like if that you aren't you enticing people that become obsessed with these types of things by teasing them with just these little bits?
Yeah, because I mean a lot of celebrities just don't put their children out at all. I mean, even I didn't do it, not because I'm a celebrity, but I didn't want pictures of my children on the internet. Now they're older, they're 18, that's fine. But not when they were 10 or 5 or, when they were little kids. You don't put pictures of them on the internet. You just don't do it.
Right.
Because there's a lot of weird people out there and you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So for them to do it is really bizarre.
Yeah, I just think you're increasing the chances of attracting somebody that would hide in the bushes or, just like the inappropriate, the things Prince Harry sits on the BBC and complains about.
Given that he is he's talking about himself as a major target for almost every madman on the planet.
Yes.
Apart from, of course, in southwest London when he's looking for somebody, ringing on doorbells and wondering if they might be in there. What was that all about?
That was so bizarre.
I know.
That was, and it just crushes his entire argument that he's fearing for his life with every step he takes on British soil.
Yes.
It's like, clearly you're not, because we know this is like one of 3 doors you knocked on randomly. So I would say I mean, the problem with Harry and Meghan is that they constantly contradict themselves between Meghan's Disneyland photos, between Harry knocking on strangers' doors. Meghan and Harry campaign to keep children off of social media. They do huge campaigns. They erected, an art installation in New York to keep children off of social media. I do think that Harry would prefer his children not to be on social media, but Meghan's got to make a buck, and that's, I think, why we're seeing more of them.
And he doesn't have much say, does he, by the looks of things? It seems as though he just has to do what he's told.
I mean, the effort he gave in the twerking video is, I feel like, which was low. Let's be honest.
He wasn't doing much, was
no.
he?
He was all hands, but weak knees, okay?
It was all that kind of thing, wasn't it? I don't know what that was, but it was not good.
It was like if Thriller, it was like, maybe a little bit of Thriller, maybe a little bit of NSYNC, I don't know. I wasn't into it. But like if he gives at least like that amount, and as far as the marriage is concerned, our decision making is concerned, I think that I doubt he approved of that video going up on the internet. I doubt that he's thrilled that they're posting the children online, and it's like we discussed.
Well, it sort of undermines his argument, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And if you're trying to help this man that you married establish his own platform away from the British royal family, first of all, please stop using the titles.
Yes.
But if you're trying to do that, then stop undermining him at every turn. Jumping on private jets for your baby shower when he's talking about climate change. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Although the last time he was talking about climate change, he took a plane to China, didn't he?
Yeah, he did do that.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, that's quite a long way away from LA.
Exactly.
As far as you can get. What do the people in America make of that twerking video? What did they say?
I am so glad you asked that, because I saw a piece written over the weekend weekend that said it was being celebrated in the States, that young people were really into it, and that Meghan was glad. She didn't care about the UK's disdain for the video because she won America. Cringe, cringy, those are the type of headlines that Page 6, the New York Post, it was all about how gross and cringe and cringy
and
that
weird,
video was.
Generally.
It's totally weird, absolutely. It's inappropriate, and again, totally. Prince Harry is saying, give us our privacy. We're owed our privacy. Why are we seeing the inside of your hospital room then, right before your baby's born? So yeah, in the States, it was seen. First of all, I had so many royal authors that know some members of the royal family. They're older, they're established, messaging me going, this is fake, right? You shared a fake video. I'm like, this is from Meghan's account. I did not share a fake video. No one could believe it was real. No one understands why she does it unless she is just addicted to that hit.
I think there's a bit of
social media.
I think there's a bit of that going on, isn't there?
I do think you're right.
And with the same with the podcasts and the little, you know, the little sort of affectations that she makes, and you know, the kind of the coy stuff with the hands and all of everything that she does seems to be generated for a reason. It doesn't seem natural to me.
No. But I also think that she's under the impression that she's Princess Diana 2.0.
Yeah.
And Diana was notorious for being able to control the media, and Meghan doesn't have the same power. It's almost like it's shamelessness with Meghan. There's no substance.
No, it's straight out there, straight on with the, you know. And meanwhile, can I just take your credit card from you so that I can just make some money?
Would you also like some loose fruit spread? Here's a video of my kid. Would you like some loose fruit spread? Actually, no.
Yeah.
No.
Really? And now she's talking about opening restaurants, doing hospitality, maybe hotels.
Yeah. Well, you can't be a mean girl and be in the hospitality business. Okay. Like, I can't imagine her in the kitchen, or her behind the scenes of a bed and breakfast or a hotel or whatever it is. Whoopsh. Can you imagine? I mean,
well, I said, what happens if you check into one of her hotels? You get an angry email at 5 in the morning, you know, bullying you to get up and to do some work, you know, because that's what she did when she was in Kensington Palace. Yeah, obviously.
No. Do you even check out of her hotel? I mean, sometimes.
You mean like Hotel California?
Sometimes
you
it
can
gets
check in, but
a little sinister.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd enjoy it. I mean, but she seems to think that she can do anything, right? And anything that she wants to start up, she can start up. But as I said to you before, she starts a lot of things up then doesn't finish them.
Yeah, I also.
So maybe that would be the hotel that didn't actually get finished.
Yeah,
you know, they're still building it 20 years' time.
Exactly. When it comes, I think she wants it to look like her portfolio is so big. Here she is dabbling in female hair care. Right. She's also invested in this purse company. You can click her affiliate link, buy her clothing, her purses, and she gets a cut of that as well.
Right.
But at the end of the day, she's a podcast host. She's a calligrapher. She's a children's book writer. I think it looks like chaos. Somebody that might need to be medicated. It's all over the place.
Yeah, it really is. And everything is all about her. Isn't it? The podcast series about other women always tends to be actually about her. Nothing to do with what they do.
So she's not selling you. She's sold you on something completely different. When you listen to it, you're like, okay, well, can I actually listen to Beyonce's mom talk about her businesses versus you talking about claiming you're going to cease as ever temporarily to 2 days later post that you're restocking?
Yeah.
I mean, completely contradictory.
I mean, in terms of their money, because this is, I suppose, a genuine question now. I mean, he got a lot of money from his mother's trust, so, you know.
And the Queen Mother.
Yeah, and the Queen
on
Mother.
His 40th birthday.
30 or 40 million or something like that. But I guess their lifestyle is so expensive. I mean, I've been told that, you know, just his security detail alone while he's in America is probably costing a couple of million a year, maybe 3. So they'll get through that money, won't they? So they need to keep making it.
Well, they're burning through money, but she also has a great lifestyle. I mean, she is wearing $6,000 coats, and she's always dripping in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. And Well, I saw one designer say that Meghan purchased the jewelry from her that she wears, that she did not send that to her. So I think that they do have their children are in expensive private schools in the area. Their home, the upkeep on a 16-bathroom house, that's a lot of toilet paper that you got to burn through. And then they do have help. Meghan recently told us she has a nanny, and that's on top of the new court that their controversial court that they're trying to build to compete with the British royal family. Good luck, it'll never work. So they do pay a lot of people to help them navigate this new world.
But it's an expensive way to navigate the world with all of those people, right?
Yes, especially when you don't listen to them and take their advice and bomb with every other project. So I do believe that you're correct, that money is the issue. And she says that in one of her podcast interviews. She talks about how she feels guilty about having a lot of money, but she's also worried about the scarcity of it. And that I didn't take away the she feels guilty for having money. What stood out to me about that statement was the scarcity comment, because I've seen that in the Blitz of 2025 with this just perpetual launch of some new project. It seems like it's filled with anxiety, like very anxious. It doesn't seem like
there's no
so
income
many
stream, is there? I mean, there isn't an income. They don't really make money. I mean, they'll do the occasional deal with somebody like Netflix, but that's going to dry up as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that when Prince Harry was in China, I suspect he was paid for that. I think that was a public speaking arrangement. But that's like that gig life that Meghan hated. Meghan hated going from audition to audition. Suits was ending. She was stressed when she met Prince Harry because her role on Suits was wrapping up. And to have to chase a dollar by going and doing these public speaking engagements, she does want a website where she can go to sleep at night and people are all over the world buying things. But are we going to be buying loose fruit spread? I don't think that was the right way to go.
No, and so does she apparently not think it was the right way to go either. So now she's going to do something completely different. So what about back here then? We've got Charles still apparently recovering from cancer, but seemingly doing okay, and trooping the colour this weekend.
Well, there are reports that this is a cancer that he's going to just be living with. And the tone we get from the palace is almost the same. You know, he's getting treatment. He receives his regular treatments, but he looks happy, healthy, full of energy every time I see him. I can't wait to see him, of course, on Saturday for trooping. We'll get to see everybody on the balcony. Prince Louis will steal the show. But unlike Meghan, I don't think he intends to. I think he shows up and he's just himself and he's super cute. We'll see his sister scolding him, telling him to behave, which is always a treat too. And I love seeing Catherine. This time last year, we were seeing Catherine for the first time after her cancer battle. So we've now, a year later, we see her completely glowing. She is incredibly healthy, and we've seen much more of her and Prince William recently. So Saturday will be something to look forward to. But as the city of LA burns down, don't worry, Meghan Markle will be accepting an award on Saturday as well.
I hope it's for some humanitarian study.
Is it? Absolutely.
Of course.
It's for Meghan helping to serve underserved communities. I'd love to know what exactly those are. But her lawyer, her LA lawyer, apparently is on the board of this museum. So that's a convenient connection.
Very nice.
So while the king is being celebrated for his life of service, Meghan is being celebrated for self-service.
Self-service, exactly right. Somebody's actually sent us a tweet earlier saying they expected to see Harry and Meghan at the riots in some way, shape or form, sort of trying to calm everybody down, or maybe hand out some hats.
Well, of course, Prince Harry doesn't want to get deported. Of course.
No, exactly.
They're ISIS. They're his enemies too.
Maybe they're going to come for him one of these days. That would be very funny. Kinsey, great to see you. Lovely to see you. I'm sure you'll be on talk a few more times while you're here.
No, I just talked to you now.
Or did you just want to do mine? Okay, well that's perfect. Lovely. Marvellous. I'll buy you some tea afterwards.
Thank you.
Kinsey Schofield, ladies and gentlemen. This, of course, is Morning Glory. We'll be back after this. Dogs are racist, according to the Welsh Labour Party. Deary me. Sorry. I can't help it. Apparently, that's breaking news. The economy has grown by 0.1%. I'm sorry, between July and September, according to the Office for National Statistics.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:57. Goodness gracious me. Let's get a quick voice note from Charlie on Rachel Reeves.
Morning, Mike. I'm absolutely aghast at how Rachel Reeves can stand there and say that they have actually fixed the economy. No, in 10 months you've actually broken the country. You've broken people's spirits. You've broken people's belief in politics. It's unbelievable that she can stand there. She's got money to give to the Chagos Islands. She's got money to give to France to, inverted commas, stop the migrants. She's got money to give to everybody else but us, the British people. And to stand there and say that she's fixing the economy, and then all of a sudden, they found some money at the back of the sofa to give to the pensioners for their welfare reforms. It is absolutely disgusting, and it's simply untrue. She doesn't have the money. The reason why she's doing this is because Reform are riding high in the polls, and that they have forced her hand to do this. I do not believe this woman. I do not believe this Labour government. They're all absolute liars. Fixing the foundations, my goodness. No, not at all.
Charlie, thank you very much indeed. Can't really disagree with any of that. Julie Hartley-Brewer's here.
Put her on the shadow front bench.
Yeah, I mean, seriously.
She nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. What I love is the economy was in tatters. They didn't have any money. They had to do this. They spent that money. This is now an uncosted policy, but that's because it's fine, because we've got some growth and the economy's fine now. We've just got unemployment ratcheting up. We've got the number of actual payroll jobs falling down. Does anyone...